morning, everyone. Good morning to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We'll also be sitting as all special taxing districts, and this is the August the 2nd, 2021. It's 9 a.m. and board members can attend in person or by telephone or remotely via electronic conferencing. I mean, they're all here, so this is my call to order. And the first item in the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll have Supervisor Lyons lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone, and I will remind everyone to put their phones on silent or vibrate, although the vibrator now, you can hear it probably, but just want to make sure we don't all get a call in the middle of the meeting. So the next item in the agenda is a call to the public. Call to the public is held for the public's benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified in the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and a decision at a future date. Public comments may be made in person or submitted by email at publiccomment@yumacountyaz.gov. The email forms of public comment will be accepted until 8 a.m. the morning of the meeting. All public comments will be read aloud during the Yuma County Board of Supervisors meeting that starts at 9 a.m. Desiree, do we have any email comments? All right, and I'm going to open up the call to the public, and I do have some comment forms, speaker forms. And now, if you hear in regards to something that's in the agenda, I would, ask you to, remain until then, not to open it up in the public meeting. The public session, the call to the public, is only open for us to more or less take on comments. We can't really make a decision. We have to move it to another, or put it as an item for discussion in the agenda. We can't decide or anything like that. I'll take Mr. Giordano Bruno first.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time today. Yes, so this is the third time I've come and talked to you. Giordano Bruno was a 12th century monk who had his tongue removed and was burned at the stake. I'm here to tell you today that since I came here and talked to you last, I talked to you last on the 19th, something has happened that I need to inform you about. I told you about the laws last time, and I told you about Turner versus Driver. 2017, Philip Turner was arrested on the street for recording the police station. Now, the police station was in Texas, and on the 20th of July, the city of Corrigan, Texas, passed an ordinance outlawing the use of photography. They made it a $500 fine. And so Philip Turner spent 3 hours and went to Corrigan, Texas, and filmed the police station. He was arrested again, and they gave him a $500 fine. And within 2 days, they took down all their signs, they dropped the ordinance, and they are now facing another lawsuit from Philip Turner. Can you imagine what it's going to be like walking into the courtroom with your own law in your own hands? And so what I'm here today to talk to you about is that you have done the same thing to me. In court documents, Mr. Smith here has said the state of Arizona, by and through undersigned counsel, this man right over here, respectfully requests the court to deny defendant's motion to record the court proceedings. The allegations in this case are tied to the defendant's very act of recording. So he's making my act of recording illegal. The victim with his wide array of recording equipment. As a result of these acts, the act of recording, victim has suffered tremendous pain, suffering, and trauma. Yes, your county attorney has come up with the great legal argument that cameras cause pain, suffering, and trauma. Can you believe how ridiculous this is from a legal standpoint? He has opened himself up to lose his qualified immunity. And if you all allow this to continue, you will be losing your qualified immunity. You realize this, right? So he has lost his qualified immunity. You ready? Thank you for your time. Have a good day. Oh, my mask. Thank you. Have a good day.
We'll wait until the air clears a little bit. We're kind of getting used to this, it's our meeting dose of abuse kind of thing, but it's okay. It doesn't, I think we've been around a long time. We know there's going to be difference of opinions, and we leave it at that. The next item in the agenda, wait a minute. I do have some more for the call to the public. Does anybody here have something? I know Gail Castriconi is here. Do we have an item for the Colonia in the agenda? Or, no? Oh, please step up. All right, well, make it. Well, first of all, let me tell you, I hadn't seen you in a while.
I know, well, I got a lot of reasons for that, but I won't say why. Good morning. My name is Gail Castricone. I reside at 3788 18th Place, the same area where Supervisor Pancrazzi lives. And I promise you that as you walk your dogs, I will allow that to be in peace, and I will no longer corner you about the Colonia.
Oh, please, that's quite all right. I enjoy it. So.
I am once again coming before you with the grave concerns about the Avenue B and C Colonia. My husband and I retired before the city sewer was completed. We rented our Fifth Street home to our daughter, where she and her husband raised their 4 children. Now they have grandbabies. That makes 4 generations that enjoy the family home. My daughter now owns the home. It has been in our family for over 40 years. During our retirement, my husband and I moved around almost every 2 years. We were in Dewey, Montana, Prescott Valley, and now back in Yuma, which is now our final resting place. Everywhere I moved, I made it a point to give out gift bags during the holidays. I gave them to my neighbors and went to poor communities. I have given out gift bags to almost every area in the Colonia. I always tried to give them encouraging words along with the gift bags. In meeting people in different walks of life, what I have found is so many people are lonely and many need help needing a hand up, not a handout. Please take note of the paper that I have given you and look at the date. We can fast forward to 2005 to 2021. Now, 16 years later, our community is still fighting the same uphill battle to restore the neighborhood and have the code violations enforced for the health, safety, and welfare of the residents in the Colonia. In the 40 years that we have had our family home, we still have fires, shootings, slum and blight, and graffiti. The same properties that were out of compliance then are still out of compliance now. I support Habitat for Humanity. I want to read you 2 of the statements that were put in their fundraising letter. Children and parents get the hand up they need to build stronger foundations and brighter futures. No matter who we are or where we come from, we all deserve a decent place to live. We are forming our steering committee on August 31st. The Lighthouse Church was kind enough to let us use their facilities for our once-a-month meetings. Its location is on the corner of May Avenue and 8th Street. Thank you for your time. Although the city gives 5 minutes, I will close with this quote from Martin Luther King Jr. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? The last quote is from Jesus, who said, Matthew 22:37, you shall love the Lord with all your heart. In Matthew 22:39, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. God bless you, and thank you for your service to our community, and God bless America.
Thank you, Gail. All right, so what we get is, an activist is back. So we're going to be hearing about some of the problems that basically afflict that area, which has been in the board's mind for a long time. And luckily we thought we could we probably did make some improvements in the area, but yes. But I'm sure that some of those social hills and some of those issues are still there. The question that I have is the Colonia still outside city limits? Because I thought part of the reason why we did all these things was to have the city sort of look a little bit more positively on annexing some of those areas. They're still out?
I don't think we've annexed.
Part
It's
of
been
it
a
is
while.
still a county island.
Part of it's still a county island?
Yes.
Well, most of it is? All right. Well, let's just define which ones are county, because we certainly don't want to run afoul with whatever efforts the city is making to.
Yeah, the maps will show you there has been some that have been annexed in over the years, but most of it's county.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Okay, well, we can't get into a lot of discussion, but I'm sure if there's an issue that we can have some impact on, we'll see. All right, the next person that wants to address the board is Judy Campbell. And she's going to talk a little bit about prayer in the meetings, which, again, I remember from a long time ago. It just dates me.
Morning, Board of Supervisors. Thank you for allowing me to address this assembly. My name is Judy Campbell. I reside at 3034 West 16th Place, District 5. You said a while ago that we didn't need to talk in this time if something was on the agenda.
Oh,
And so I actually looked online and printed out the agenda. It's not listed. Nothing is there except the meeting time today. Just wanted to let you know that, just in case. But anyway, here we go. I recently started attending the meetings at the Yuma County Board of Supervisors and the Yuma City Council, and I'm aiming to reach out to the school boards as well. I have come to realize that I need to know what is going on in my community so I will better know how to pray and be of help. On July 19th, I was here and commented at the end of the meeting that I would love to see the meetings opened with prayer. Councilman Reyes said that he would have to check with the legal team. Since I too was taught in my youth that church and state must always be kept separate, I understood what he meant. Since that earlier education, I have been brought to realize more fully that our government was established on Judeo-Christian principles. And the First Amendment of the Constitution, as you know, says that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibit the free exercise thereof. Thereby, I can see that our government has to stay out of church, but the church, we the people, is privileged and obligated to affect the government. After all, the laws that are enacted by the people that I elect will affect me. So I'm entitled and have the obligation to pray for them. Thank God we still salute the flag at the public meetings like this. And in that public salute, we say, one nation under God. The question then begs, if we declare we are under God, why are we not privileged, indeed obligated, to publicly ask the God we are under for his help and direction? I want to see public prayer as part of the beginning of every meeting. And of interest, the city council meetings are always started with the salute to the flag and prayer. Thank you.
Well, Judy, first of all, I'm not Councilman Reyes anymore, but I used to be, so I got used to that. I was Mayor Reyes. Said I'm not Councilman, I'm Supervisor Reyes. But no, look, we can't get into a lot of this discussion, but I've been around long enough to know that there are some places where prayer may be, not maybe, but actually is used at the beginning of the meetings. So we have to tread this one carefully, because I go back and remembering that we did have sort of like a prayer at the opening of the Board of Supervisors meeting 20-some years ago. And then some guy from a Satanist cult came in and said, well, if you're allowing somebody to pray, then I want to pray. And it became a very hot, contested issue. I don't think that that's exactly where we're going to go, but I'm sure there's an accommodation we can make. We'll just check with the legal and see if it's possible. Maybe a minute of silence before the meeting begins, so we allow people to pray whatever religion they may be, something like that, that doesn't clash with somebody else's religion, because that's the issue most of the time. It's not that we as a board, I think we would be comfortable with prayer. I don't see that as an issue for us. I see it as a legal issue that where we may get embroiled in a situation where somebody feels, and we just had an example who left the meeting earlier about, how people interpret certain things. So we need to make sure that we do it right. And I'm more than glad or willing to allow some space for prayer. I just need to have a little bit clearer guidance in what kind or in what manner can we do that. Okay, well, we'll look into it.
I normally don't have trouble hearing, but
I may be mumbling, it's getting a little bit touchy. But the issue of prayer,
He hasn't recovered from his vacation.
I haven't recovered from whatever I was, but I haven't recovered from the prayer issue back in 20-something. But we will look into it and we'll see how much leeway we have legally to do that. We are an arm of the state. And so we do. One of the things I found out when I became a supervisor is how limited our powers are. We are a creature of statute. We're not like a city council who can draft ordinances and do a lot of things. We basically almost the opposite of a city councilman. Of a city. A city can pass ordinances, they can pass laws within the city jurisdiction. We live by statute. If it isn't a proven statute, we have a tough time getting it done.
Mr. Chairman, we'll provide a legal opinion. We've already provided somewhat. And unless you're responding to further criticism, which I don't think you are, I'm going
all right.
to reel you back in.
Well, I'm criticizing the legal department now. All right, we'll get a legal decision, a legal opinion and get back to you soon. All right. Anyone else that wants to address the public, the board? I think I'm going to move on. I'm going to leave the call to the public open and move on to presentations, proclamations, and appointments. This is a segment of the agenda where board members may discuss the presentations and proclamations and may announce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Yuma County Board of Adjustments. Again, no legal action will be taken. I have been made aware, if I don't see anybody from the video department, that electrical storm we had a few days ago knocked off some part of the system that we use for the county line, for preparing the county line. So we're not gonna do that today. We're gonna move on and hear a presentation from James Schuessler, President and CEO of the Yuma Multiverse Campus, on the organization's activities.
Good morning. Pleased to be with you. I'm going to be very brief with respect to your time this morning, but I thank you all for accommodating me on the schedule. The goal today is to provide you with a very rapid and brief update with progress on the development of the Multiversity Campus. The overarching message is this: we've got a rapidly growing county. Our population is growing. We've got a very young population here, and investment in higher education has not grown anywhere near to the degree of that matches our growth. You're familiar, likely, with all members of our board of directors. The goal of the multiversity and the multiversity is really responding to the growth of the county and the current needs as identified by our existing primary employers, some of which are listed here. Greater Yuma Economic Development Corporation every year does business retention and expansion surveys. They find out what's really keeping business owners, our primary business owners, awake every night. And the quality of the workforce has certainly been something that's addressed there. And as someone that's worked as an economic development professional, 7 out of 10 is not really a strong place where we want to be. 100% of the respondents to those briefs or those business retention expansion surveys believe that a 4-year or tech presence is necessary here. Now, we've got people like Tanya Hodges and her team doing great things for UA, as well as amazing things at UA and even ASU. But this perception with our business community, even though UA has been at it for 10 years, still permeates with their business community. The challenge of recruiting and retaining skilled workforce is really underscored as a prevailing problem. And I'll go back to February of last year in a meeting that I had up at Yuma Proving Ground. Colonel Pottenberger, Ross Pottenberger, was CO at that time up there, and he says, listen, he says, we're hiring a lot of people from outside the area, and the challenge is if they're not from the Yuma region, they are much less likely to stay. We need more locally sourced talent. So the main driver of the Yuma Multiversity, if it becomes a reality, is developing more locally sourced talent. We've got a retirement boom on the horizon here too. 78% of that workforce is defined as middle age, and this data came down before the pandemic. Issues with workforce and of course constant challenges with turnover of our educators. Now, Expect More Arizona was really driving to get at least 60% of all Arizonans aged 25 to 64 at least to a 2-year degree, and we are very much in danger of achieving that. And when you take three of these groups as identified by Expect More Arizona, you're talking about 99.9% of the population of Greater Yuma here. So we've got a lot of work to do. More and more jobs are requiring advanced education beyond high school. Administrator Thorpe was kind enough to pass out to you the results of a Gallup survey that was recently completed, focused on the education component. There are 7 different criteria that they identified there, but looking at the education component, in a world where we really seem to be divided into a 50-50 world, people really in Arizona value higher education. 92% believe that we need qualified educators and principals. I'm not sure what the other 8% are thinking, because I think that's something that I think we should all agree on. But I think the most important thing that came from that survey is this 89% on the right-hand side here. 89% of Arizonans agree that everyone growing up in Arizona deserves a shot at an education, no matter where they come from. Now, there's good news. Helios has been working a lot with our school districts. This data that you're looking at here is from the 2017-2018 school year. The teal bar is Yuma County. The gold bar is the state of Arizona. So our school districts are actually exceeding now high school graduation rates of the state and post-secondary education. The biggest challenges are on the left and right. I look at them as opportunities, but they are in fact challenges as well. On the left side, that data revealed that nearly 1 in every 5 persons aged 16 to 24 are neither working nor attending school, and that's a big problem, and it's also a big opportunity when we solve it. And then on the right side, and this has been a historical issue, is we have many from Yuma County that start post-secondary, but they don't finish. And so the multiversity is really seeking to provide resources to help solve those issues. So I've had some people in higher education say access is not a problem anymore in Yuma County. I've had many people in key positions say that access is still a significant problem. But when you step back and look at a long-term historical basis, just compare 2 counties, Coconino County and Yuma County. Since the 1960s, NAU has been providing 4-year and higher degrees in Coconino County. And that's 3 generations ago. The results are unmistakable. Even though the population of Yuma County is much larger than Coconino County, when you look at baccalaureate degrees or higher, 50% bigger population of baccalaureate degrees or higher in Coconino County, a much smaller county as compared to Yuma County. The per capita income is higher in Coconino County, and of course, poverty level is much lower in Coconino County. Well, what can that mean? It means that if we can scale up higher education here over the long run, we can land more business here, more primary employers. And recently, a new electronic propulsion parts vehicle manufacturer opened a plant. They're from Michigan. They opened a plant. They're currently building a plant in Flagstaff, converting a Walgreens plant. These plants bring good, high-wage, great benefit jobs. Yuma County didn't have a shot at this one, and I don't believe that that's a reflection whatsoever on Julie Engel and her team, that they didn't have a shot. The fact is that what these companies look for when they're seeking to land their business elsewhere is they're looking for 2 things. Available workforce, we got that, but they're looking at education. And that's a real challenge, for us at this point in time, something that we really need to work to solve. No politics involved whatsoever in this map, I'm pleased to say. The redder the counties here, the greater the population loss that's taken place in these counties over the past 9 years. The bluer the county, the greater the population growth. This is a real advantage for Yuma County if we can solve higher ed. The redder the county, the more they're trying to hang on to what they've got. Yet many of these redder counties have a much more significant investment in higher education than what these bluer counties are. So we definitely need to demand more and more infrastructure development from both state and federal investment as those dollars are certainly becoming available. 3,144 counties, parishes in Louisiana and the United States of America. And in fact, our population growth has been so significant. Yuma County now ranks among the top 10 percentile of most populous counties in America. So that's how quickly this has grown on. It's almost 4-fold in the last 50 years. And of note is the growth in the southern part of the county. This is a big deal when we're seeking to attract new primary employers here and make sure that we are able to solve the needs of our existing primary employers. Now that the Somerton School District is coming online, the projections from Yuma Union are by 2030, really just 8 years from now, that the population of San Luis and Somerton high schools will be nearly the same as 3 of Yuma's 4 high schools. The growth is taking place much more in the southern part, and that is very attractive to primary employers if we can provide the education. So I see that kind of use one of my metaphors as kind of a big pork chop that we've got hanging around our neck to attract more primary employers in here if we can solve the education. So the multiversity is really about collaboration. This is our mission statement. It's about being that pipeline connector between higher ed, potential prospective talent, and our existing and prospective future employers. Wanting to make sure that if we're growing our talent here, that we're also creating opportunities for GYEC, the city, the county, the cities, I should say, the county, to attract more primary employers in here because of what we're accomplishing. When the talent of our workforce matches the needs of our primary employers, they're much less dependent on recruiting people from outside the area. They're in a much better position to retain their talent, and it certainly has every benefit to a thriving and vibrant middle class. So we broke this project down into 4 pieces. The first phase is, for all intents and purposes, complete. That was establishing a nonprofit organization, and then the coordination with all of the interested parties seeking to develop more skills here, more higher education here. Phase 2 is where we're getting to launch off onto next week. So that's a third-party source. On the 11th, we'll be announcing an organization that we've hired to work with us to get an independent view on our assets and our opportunities. We will build a business plan from that. And then, of course, depending on what the results are, we'll be seeking to build community support to have more of that development take place here. Phase 3 is execution of Phase 2. So it's a process of collaboration and consensus. Our board, county board, will certainly be involved to engage in individual meetings with that third party, confidential individual meetings to provide that feedback that's so valuable to the development process. So the vision of Phase 2 is multifaceted, improving and increasing access to higher education here in the Yuma County region, expanding offerings at all levels, retaining our best and brightest. And this isn't to trap our best and brightest in Yuma County. The fact is that Phase 1 has revealed that we force many people to leave here because many of the things that they're seeking to do are just not offered here. So it's seeking opportunities so that we can retain more of our best and brightest. Improving collaboration and cooperation, addressing the workforce needs of both existing and prospective future employers, and catalyzing that innovation economy to take place right here. Many of these targets will be natural. Some of them you wouldn't have necessarily thought about. Automotive industry is a real target for us. Maricopa County is really doing a good job on multiple phases of attracting electronic propulsion automotive into the county. We saw it was good for Flagstaff. Buckeye announced a new huge plant for batteries, lithium-ion batteries, that will result in 3,000 jobs. There's no reason Yuma County can't be a key part of that supply chain if we scale up the skills here. So the regional economy of the future, and of course the new economy initiative that Dr. Crow from ASU always talks about. So we've started the organization. On the 11th next week, we will have a meeting of our board of directors, a workshop, moving through the process. By the end of March, hopefully by early March actually, we want to have a fully well-vetted strategic plan that we then can agree upon because it'll be collaboratively developed. So the bottom line on the Yuma multiversity is at this point is the overarching message is, outside of Yuma County, frankly, nobody outside of Yuma County woke up today worrying about Yuma County. They've all got their issues to deal with, and I'm not asking that we take that personally. I think that if we're going to care about Yuma County's future, that we really ought to identify what are our needs, what are our future needs. But fortunately, we've got many assets that we've got working with. Arizona Western College punches well above their weight when you compare all the community colleges in Arizona. They're doing a heck of a job. Our universities need more locally sourced resources so they can do more here rather than packing our talent off elsewhere. And our youth and our diversity is our absolute silver bullet for our future. We can land more companies here if we can scale up that talent. So it's really about taking all this information, saying, here is our plan, attracting resources at the state and federal level to have more of that stuff take place here. Welcome any questions if that's appropriate.
Okay, just look, I love the idea of a four-year campus in Yuma that is identified with Yuma. The problem that I have is normally that Yuma itself has an identity as a city. You mentioned Coconino County, and then you mentioned Flagstaff. Well, in Yuma, anything you call Yuma, it's related to the city of Yuma. I still have a tough time telling people that the border isn't in Yuma, that it's in San Luis. And this adds to that sort of confusion. So the first thing when you guys meet the first time, think about adding county, Yuma County multiversity into it so that you really bring in South County, that you really bring in the eastern portion of the county, and they have a stake at this, because if it continues to be this way, it will always be seen as a project of the city of Yuma. We have forefronted in is the city of Yuma. And we keep having this identity crisis, a separation. But if you want to have a countywide effort, you should be looking at naming it as a countywide project, not just as a Yuma project, because again, I've been around here for 20-some years, and I still have a problem every once in a while explaining that Yuma County is a county, not just the city of Yuma. So, just a comment. You're starting this process. It'd be nice.
Will I take that back?
It would be nice for everybody to feel they're part of it. And if South County is so important, and if Somerton is important, and Eastern County is important, then they should feel a part of this. It right now feels more like a Yuma project. And it's not that I necessarily disagree that they're probably the driver of a lot of these things. They normally are. But it just doesn't make you feel like you're a part of it when all it says is just Yuma. You mentioned Yuma County like 12 times in the last portion of your presentation. Do it on your what do you call that, logo, and it would feel a lot better for a lot of those people who want to be a part of it. Okay.
And not only will I take that feedback back, but I will create an environment for you and others to provide that feedback directly. And as you can see in the data that we're discussing here, we are thinking, broadly. If this was just about Yuma proper, it'd be a very different discussion. The data wouldn't necessarily reveal that.
I can tell that. Yeah. Just by your presentation. You mentioned Yuma County all the time. I don't think you even said the city of Yuma. But it's a branding problem, and it's one that has been around for as long as I've been in politics. I mean, it was tough to tell people, like Nogales doesn't have a problem with Tucson, but San Luis has a problem with Yuma in terms of identity. They've always been a little bit off the marker. And whenever somebody comes and flies into the border, they think they're flying into Yuma. They may be flying into Yuma County in portions of it, but they're actually getting to San Luis. San Luis is the border. And
well, there's much to be proud of in San Luis, by the
No.
way.
I am a former mayor.
In fact, they've got shovel-ready sites.
I know. I know there's a lot to be proud in San Luis. It just needs to. Your logo needs to take in more. Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Any other comment?
No, thank you.
No.
I have one. When you say build community support, I mean, when you started off, you said at the beginning of the presentation, if you have all these studies already that presented, is that what do you mean when you say build community support?
Well, first, the studies that I'm referring to are data that I've been able to develop. So when you saw that 4-phase timeline there, that's actually this third-party source, this third party that's coming in to bring all this data, and it will be a collaborative situation where the community will be involved in the process. So elected officials, higher education, our primary employers, the nonprofits that have an interest in seeking more educational attainment. Arizona at Work, will be, as a nonprofit, will be involved in that. So once we complete that process early next year, that building community support, that third party will be providing feedback to the community through multiple channels to make sure that everyone knows what's, what the results are of this phase 2 of the project.
Are you located at the Goan Company? Is that why?
They've given me space to work out of, and the culture at Gowan has just been perfect. So yeah, the Jessens have been very generous, and it's just a good space to work out of there. It's the Gowan tribe is amazing. So yeah, I'm just down the street.
Yeah. All right. Well, any other comments? Thank you very much.
Thank
Very
you for this
informative.
time.
Thank you. I think 4 weeks ago, we had the college saying, oh, we don't need a 4-year university, right? We can do everything ourselves. So it's nice to see that competition. I love it. I think it's great. All right. Anything else? Oh, well, no, not anything else in this. This is not the count to the public. We're going to move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar is where items are listed under the consent agenda, will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion, unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. We have items 1 through, let's see, 13. That's 1 through 13. Does anybody want to pull one? No? All right, well then I need a motion to approve the
Motion that we approve 1 through 13 as presented.
I'll second it.
There's been a motion and a second to approve items 1 through 13 as presented. Well, there will be no discussion if nobody pulls any items out. So all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. So items 1 through 13 have been approved on the consent calendar, and we're moving on to the discussion and action items, which in this case begin with what used to be our beginning item every meeting, and then we stop because of everybody's assumption that we were done with COVID. So we did bring back in its county administration, public health services, and energy management, a discussion and a possible action regarding COVID-19 updates and activities. And for that, we have the public health director, Diana Gomez, with us this morning. Sorry, Diana, I thought you were getting back to, quote, your normal schedule on Monday mornings, and we're breaking it up, but it seems to me it's sort of necessary. And we miss you anyway, so.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. Diana Gomez, Director of Public Health. And yes, so we are seeing an increase, just like the rest of the country, we're seeing an increase in cases. And that's primarily driven by the Delta variant, which you've heard in the news. The Delta variant is much more contagious than previous versions. And it's becoming the dominant strain, not just here, but across the country. So again, it's another reminder for people, to remind people the importance of vaccination. We continue to have clinics. Yuma County currently stands just shy of 50%. In order to reach herd immunity, we need to do much better. We are seeing an increase in cases. Over the weekend, we saw 72 cases reported one day. I believe that was Saturday. Sunday, we saw 29. Today, we're down to 6. Again, testing is down. So we're seeing significantly lower numbers of tests. So the fact that we're seeing, higher cases is just indicative of the fact that that's the trend prevailing. To give you perspective, back in February, our positivity rate, the number of tests that were coming back positive, was hovering around 6%. So this is back in February. And then we dipped to a low of like 2% in June. We were doing really well. We were seeing single-digit numbers. This weekend, we climbed up to 13% again. So it's trending upward. With that, we anticipate, again, the risk primarily is, again, to the unvaccinated people. I know that there's, I've had conversations with people where in the beginning, the original Alpha variant that we saw, when we had those conversations about risk assessment, we knew that a lot of people were asymptomatic or had mild symptoms. This is not the same virus. This virus has evolved. It's getting smarter. It's much faster at replicating inside your body, which makes you much more contagious. Originally, when we talked about the original virus, we talked about how it would take a while after exposure for you to test positive. You test positive much sooner, obviously, because of the variant. So it's just much more contagious, and the symptoms are much more severe. for people that are not unvaccinated. So again, just something to keep in mind. Reminder that there's people that legitimately cannot get a vaccine because of an autoimmune condition, or vaccines don't work as well for them. Plus, we have a lot of children still, anybody under the age of 12, who's not eligible to receive their vaccination. So again, another reminder for people that are still concerned or have concerns about getting vaccinated and have questions, reach out to a trusted provider, ask those questions, get your questions answered. I think it's important to have the opportunity to voice any concern you have, but it's also equally important to have those facts and be aware. Data is meant to inform. And so I know that sometimes it's frustrating that the guidance changes. I know it's frustrating that we come out and we know this and then it changes a few weeks later. That's because this is evolving, and it's no different, and in no way trying to minimize the impact of this virus. But it's you don't have one play in your playbook. You know, you don't go out there if you're the team and you just stick to the same play over and over. So we have to adapt. We have to make those changes. And I know it's frustrating. You see that in areas of high. We enjoyed the distinction of being one of two counties. It was us and Cochise counties, the only two counties in the state of Arizona that up until a week ago were in moderate transmission. Yuma County has now transitioned to substantial, and the other 11 counties are in high transmission. So again, we're seeing that upward trend. So again, a reminder for people, if you're not vaccinated, again, seek out those opportunities, inform yourself, and again, ask those questions. And again, there's the guidance regarding wearing masks. And again, we recommend that anybody that's unvaccinated wear those masks just as a protection. It's a non-pharmaceutical intervention that's highly effective. We have kids going back to school, and again, it's just what we do as a group. We have testing opportunities available. We continue to provide vaccination options. They're readily available at pharmacies. Most communities have them. We've done a lot of pop-up clinics throughout the county to encourage that. And then schools also have the opportunity to have surveillance in schools. There's an opportunity for them to get access to what we call pool testing, where they can test the classrooms. It's a way to kind of make sure that everything's okay in that classroom. And if somebody comes positive, then you can follow up with a rapid test to confirm that. Also, I'm happy to announce that ADHS, the board had established funding for the wastewater surveillance program, and that's going really strong. ADHS recently announced to us that they will continue to fund that program and have committed $1 million for the next upcoming year. So it'll allow us to expand and sustain that surveillance system. So again, very timely application for that. So again, the wastewater surveillance project allows us to have up to 2 weeks advance notice of trending upward. So again, it's just data so that people can make the informed decisions to protect themselves and their families. So with that,
right.
I will.
I know you're gearing to go. Just want to ask a question, because I've always, when I hear the percentages of people vaccinated, my question has always been, is it the percentage of people who can get a vaccine or the percentage of people in general?
Just administered. It's the percentage in general. So you go off the population and then you see the percentage of your
But
population.
if you can't vaccinate 12 years old, I mean, that they make up a large percentage of the population, and you don't want, people who had it may not feel like they need to get vaccinated because they have their own immunity, quote, natural immunity system. So that we have no way of knowing, what percentage of the population that actually can be given the vaccine already has it.
Well, so you go by the population, and the eligible population across the board, the entire population of the county, 50% are vaccinated. Then it's broken down by age group. So under 20, we have a 17% vaccination rate across the board. And that would make sense mostly because 12 and under are not eligible, or under 12, I'm sorry, are not eligible to receive the vaccine. In the higher age groups, you have a higher percentage of vaccination. So fortunately, 65 and over, 70% of that people in that age group that reside here have gotten the vaccine. And then you have the 55 to 64, 82% of that eligible age group has received the vaccine. So,
the good news.
Yeah, those are good numbers. What we saw originally with the first iteration of the virus was that 95% of the hospitalizations and the deaths were in that 55 and over age group. So the fact that we have really high vaccination rates there is a positive indicator. Now, what we're seeing with this Delta variant is that we're seeing younger people get affected. That was something that we really honestly did not see in the beginning. It seemed to affect mostly older people. So we're seeing younger people get this virus. And again, vaccines, you can get a level of immunity, like you said, from contracting the virus and recovering. And it provides a level of immunity. We don't know if you have the ability to get reinfected, but contracting it and recovering provides a level of immunity, or you can get a level of immunity from a vaccine without getting sick. Again, no vaccine is perfect, so it's, I think, important to just put that out there. But they still have a high efficiency rate against, or effectiveness rate against hospitalization and severe illness. So we have seen breakthrough infections among the vaccinated. However, we know that the symptoms in those have been milder. And we know that, the hospitalizations, again, the majority of the hospitalizations, 97%, have been among unvaccinated people. So a lot of data, I understand why that's confusing. And again, as we get more information, the longer out we are from the initial rollout of the vaccines and we have more people vaccinated, we can track that data and see those trends. We are cautiously optimistic that there will be approval for the 12 and under. That's the next group of that's currently being tested. Vaccines are being tested for, but we don't have that yet. So there was some estimates that maybe it would come this fall, and we haven't heard anything yet. So again, your best protection against severe symptoms and hospitalization remains the vaccine.
Supervisor. Jonathan, go ahead.
So I had a few people reach out to me over the weekend, and they sent me a bunch of different articles, and I appreciate everything that you said and talking about specifically the people who have contracted it after receiving the vaccine. There was one article in Massachusetts that said 79% of the people that had come down with it had already been vaccinated, and CNBC reported like 150,000 people had been vaccinated, came down with that variant, and so asking to justify and just looking for a little bit more of a data set to understand a little bit better, because people are unsure on how to proceed. Specifically, people who are so against the vaccine, if it's a reoccurring, why do it, especially when many were hospitalized?
And to that point, that is one of the reasons that the CDC updated their mask wearing guidance. So yes, it was that particular outbreak where you saw, I believe that it was 346 cases and 74% of them were fully vaccinated. 79% of them reported having symptoms. Again, compared to not the severity of the symptoms, was not as severe as if you would have not been vaccinated. And again, the majority of people that are hospitalized with severe symptoms are those that are unvaccinated. But yes, this really paints a stark picture and a reminder of how different this Delta variant is from the original variant that we saw, the Alpha variant, which was the first one that we were talking about in the beginning, where up to 70% of people had mild or asymptomatic symptoms. That is not the case. So to your point, yes, we have had, that is a very high percentage in vaccinated people whose symptoms could have been worse, the hospitalization rates could have been higher. So it is concerning. But again, if anything, that speaks to the fact that this variant is really, really efficient at replicating, at making you sick, at the possibility of breakthrough infections. So again, we know what we're seeing now from the data is that because there's breakthrough infections, for example, what we just talked about, it is possible. They're recommending that people, even if you're vaccinated, have an awareness of where you're in densely populated areas, particularly indoors, wear a mask, because it is possible for, in certain cases, for them to have that high virus load. And even if they're not symptomatic, pass on the virus to somebody else. So again, evolving information. So given the option of, taking the risk of receiving some level of immunity by exposure and having a vaccine and possibly contracting the virus, but not having a severe symptoms, that's where that data comes in. And I realize that when you see those numbers, to somebody that's already hesitant, it's what's the point? The point is the difference between a possibly very severe, infection versus something that's more manageable. But again, it's important to ask those questions, and it's important to have these conversations, because when you see the data, depending on where you're listening to the information or how you're getting it, it is very confusing. And it's as we learn and as we go and as we get more data, it evolves. And so when you hear these confusing messages, it's when you're already hesitant and you have concerns, it begs that question. So again, when we have, as we approach flu season, there was flu, but we really didn't have many documented cases as opposed to every other year. This year, we expect that to be different. So the fear, again, is that surge on our healthcare system. We are in a better place as far as we know how to treat the virus better. There's been advances as far as therapies are concerned, medical treatments, because we know we're better prepared than we were a year and a half ago. However, the problem when we started and the problem that remains is that as we get supplies, as we get more information on how to treat it, it remains a personnel issue. So yes, we've procured more ventilators, we've procured more PPE, but you still need the staff to run those. And our frontline workers and our healthcare workers, our nurses, the people that were caring for these patients, there's the demand, the concern is that the demand will exceed the available personnel. And again, that might mean having some sort of precaution where last year we shut down access to some of the nursing homes. It means the difference between being able to accompany somebody at the hospital or not having access because of some sort of protective guidelines to protect people from infection. So again, that's the difference. So yes, please ask questions and ask questions. I think that's important.
Supervisor Lunch.
Have you gotten any indication when they're going to, I know some people are hesitant about getting vaccinated because it's still a temporary
Emergency use authorization. Correct.
authorization.
And so that was that it has been something that has been frequently cited by people that are concerned. It's the emergency use authorization. Pfizer vaccine, which is currently available for 12 and up, is probably the first one that we'll be able to obtain. I know that both Moderna and Pfizer are currently waiting, have submitted that data to get full authorization. And so again, we're cautiously optimistic that is coming soon. But yes, and again, emergency use authorization was granted because of those there, where with any other medication and any other pharmaceutical intervention, I should say, when you give something emergency authorization and later full authorization, it's because the science, the medical professionals, your doctor has determined anytime something is prescribed to you that the benefit of whatever they are prescribing or recommending outweighs the risk, which was what was determined with the emergency use authorization. So yes, we're cautiously optimistic that is the next step for those two vaccines.
Sure. Supervisor Pankhurst.
I was reading somewhere, or I heard it on the news about communities that are bringing the vaccine to the people, like having clinics at Home Depot or Lowe's, or have we done anything like that? I know we took busloads of folks from the other side of the border and brought them up and did that with regional center, but.
So we've done a lot of site-based locations. We haven't gone to a store. We partnered with U of A with their mobile unit, and we did some apartment complexes as well, because I think that's important sometimes due to restrictions. Yes, it's widely available, and you can go to a pharmacy or another event, but sometimes the hours of operation, bringing it to your location is easier. We haven't hosted anything at a public setting like a public store, but that's certainly something that we could explore. But again, continuing to have those pop-up small vaccine, we've done it with churches, we've done it with some targeted, approaches where we've either reached out to them or they've reached out to us. That is an open possibility. So if somebody's watching and you want us to, go over to, if it's a retail store or it's an apartment complex, and you want us to go down there, we will go down there. Or a church, yes. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Hold on.
With the porousness of the border and being at the airport a couple of times last week and seeing, over 400 people a day in this region being transported, are you working with the Border Patrol and ICE to assure that everybody's being tested?
So Border Patrol has a partnership. They're working with a nonprofit Regional Center for Border Health, and they, the last information I had was that they were continuing to do their testing where they were going down there getting tested. In some instances, once you're here, you're eligible for the vaccine as well, and then transported. So there's a system in place. Again, those things continue to evolve, but it's in a much more streamlined way than it was, a couple of months ago. So that work continues with that nonprofit. And I know there's other nonprofits, particularly in Somerton, where they're working with a lot of the asylum seekers to make sure that they have access to those resources and testing as well.
And it's not necessarily our problem, but it is part of our problem. The sheriff has expressed a concern with the getaways, the people who are not being stopped and detained and actually being carriers, and as they integrate into society. So I think that we have an underlying problem there as well. That's one of the concerns that he expressed to me, specifically for our county.
And that would continue happening as long as we have this disparity. I mean, people come from countries that don't have the vaccine. They're coming in. Obviously, they're not necessarily screened by us. We would have that problem no matter what. It's just one of those things with immigration is that you don't control who's coming in illegally. Otherwise, but it wouldn't be illegal then. But again, my concern is this, and I'm getting to it as soon as did you want to say something before we start?
I just had a quick question. If we can add it to, we release numbers daily telling people, these people are, with this many people tested positive. Can we add in there if it's a Delta variant and the age group to kind of get the point out even more?
So the tricky part with that is that not every test is sent away for sequencing. So those numbers would, we can give you a percentage, and I could tell you that, the higher, let's say you send away like 20 samples, I could tell you that, 3 weeks ago you had like maybe one of them come back as a Delta, and then now it's like 40% of them come back. But because not every test is sent for sequencing, then we wouldn't be able to give you a truly accurate result. But we could we've looked at the numbers and we can see a higher number of infections, again, in the younger group. And nationally, that's how it's trending. So we could do a general overview of how it's trending, but it would be really hard without truly testing or sequencing every single test to give an accurate, number.
I just figured it might be something to help the public understand a little
The
bit.
severity.
I think the breakthrough, just the fact that there could be breakthrough infections is, as a public health professional, that's very alarming.
All right.
Diana, the test doesn't say what variant.
No, so the test will come back, whatever PCR test or rapid test will come back as positive or negative. Then they're sent away to a lab. And there's several labs, and we are sending samples from different providers here, and then they're sequenced. And sometimes it takes a week, sometimes it takes 2 weeks, and so we'll find it more of an antidotal type. And so, for example, once we know a variant is here, the new variant, we know, for example, with the Delta, once we got our first case, we knew it was just a matter of time before that became the predominant variant, and that's been the case everywhere else. So until we get, we continue to have those vaccinations, we're not going to reach herd immunity until we have kids, that are eligible to be vaccinated. Variants will continue to evolve. That's what they do.
Yeah, I get it.
What was the variant that was reported from Brazil?
Brazilian bear.
P1 variant.
P1. And are we tracking that, or is it?
Yes,
just
so
about-
we get an idea of how many the different types of variants. So we still have the original Alpha variant. We have so we had with the British variant. When that came out, it was like, well, that's more contagious than what we saw originally. And then we saw the P1 variant, which is the Brazilian that we first identified in Brazil, where we saw that people that had contracted the virus, not vaccinated, but had gotten ill and recovered, had the possibility of getting reinfected again in certain cases. So that was the concern there, and it was much more contagious. And then there was a couple more mutations in between, and then we're dealing with the Delta variant, which we know spreads faster and higher viral loads, and that's just the nature of viruses.
Well, let's get to the easy discussion, the mask discussion, because that's going to come up, and it's not going to stop coming up. Mm-hmm. And really, if we're going to be making decisions, there are two basic premises we got to look at. One, it's whether it can actually be mandated, because there's a question about whether by law you can do that now in Arizona after the last legislative session. And the second is where could it be voluntary? And I suppose voluntary is not a legal issue, but we'll get to it. The idea of wearing a mask, and I look out into the audience here, then I see one employee that was wearing a mask. I saw another one that came in wearing a mask, and I see another one standing up wearing a mask. But 2 out of 30, people, it's not really looking to me like there's a desire to wear a mask voluntarily. So the question is, okay, how efficient and what's the science behind it? Because we always keep talking about, okay, if it's a choice, it's going to be a difficult one. If it's not a legal choice, it's even more difficult because then you have to challenge, basically you have to challenge the law, which I don't think we want to do that. So the question maybe it's not so much, well, it's a health one first, and then it's a legal one second, because there's been conversations internally about actually requiring employees to wear a mask and requiring people who come into public places to wear a mask, just like San Luis did. So what is your take on that?
So the CDC, based on the outbreak that Supervisor Lyons described, updated their guidance, and I know that that was one of the issues with the confusing messaging, saying that even vaccinated people should be encouraged to wear masks in areas where there is substantial to moderate transmission. And again, that's because that's a non-pharmaceutical intervention that we know is effective. We saw the numbers just by looking at the flu cases. We saw that people were not getting sick, and we were using that to keep the numbers down and keep the healthcare system from becoming overwhelmed when we did not have a vaccine. And so again, because there's the possibility of breakthrough infections, masks remain a non-invasive, non-pharmaceutical way of protecting primarily people that are unvaccinated, but also people that are vaccinated and may get a breakthrough infection from maybe not contracting it, well, testing positive and possibly transmitting the virus. So it's one of those things where it's a non-invasive, very effective tool. And the guidance that just came out as well from the CDC for schools was to recommend that children wear masks in those indoor spaces as well. So it's one of those things where to protect yourself, particularly if you're not unvaccinated, wearing a mask is a very effective tool.
Right. So where are we on this legally?
As it stands today, my last check was you could only mandate in public buildings. At that point, you cannot do a mandate countywide.
Well, I know. I wasn't thinking countywide. I was actually just thinking county business, county facilities. Because they're mostly public facilities, they have access to everyone. So the question was, can you actually legally require people to wear a mask, employees to wear a mask, and or visitors to a county building to wear a mask? And what does it take to do that if we wanted to do that?
We've looked at some ways and some different ideas that's been asked from administration. I think the main concern was the identifying those who are unvaccinated and mandating that they wear masks. I think we're telling them no, at this point you can't do that.
Would that violate HIPAA?
I'm not a HIPAA expert. I know HIPAA generally applies with medical facilities and the sharing of information among them, but it would probably be something we'd sit down with public health and administration and draft something out specifically as to what it is they'd like to see done, and we'll help identify what you can do. Well, that new statute will take effect in the 29th, and it's retroactive at that point.
Right. Well, my concern is that essentially I don't feel comfortable with having a countywide mandate. That I think it's getting to a point where it gets really politicized, and it gets really, you call it a non-invasive method. Other people look at it as a civil rights issue, and that's, and it's just not. We're not getting through to a lot of these people. I think that the level of sickness may get through, and because I think I see a little bit of an uptick on vaccinations, because I think everybody started to realize that, well, whatever, and I don't want to get into at length. I just wanted to know where we're standing legally if we decided to require our employees to wear a mask and people who walk into a public building like today to wear a mask, and how would we go about doing that if we wanted to do that? And that wouldn't be a decision of the chairman. Last time it was. I could actually issue a proclamation, a mandate, and create a mandate countywide. I don't want to do that. If it's going to be a decision, it would probably be an administrative decision, And then if the majority of the board wanted to discuss it, then I'd bring it up for discussion. But that would be an administrative decision as far as I'm concerned. I just don't feel comfortable with a mandate, period, a mandate. But if legally we can implement one, I would like to know that first before we go through all the pain and trouble of finding out where people stand on the issue, because I know where most people stand on the issue. And I don't want to, I don't want to create a situation where even if we discussed it at length and decided on something as a board, that we would end up with a legal issue. That's why we need some legal direction. I'll put it in the agenda for next meeting. We'll try to put it in as an addendum, and then we'll discuss it as a board if need be. If the science takes us there, I mean, if there seems to be a peak for most of these things, if we go past the peak, we may be just reacting a little too late, and it worked itself out, which it may. But if it doesn't, and if it gets any worse, then I want it up here in front of us so we can make a decision, okay? And I want legal to back it up if it needs to be backed up, and I want the administration to participate on the review, okay? And you, obviously, you and your staff.
Yeah, and I know that that's not, I know that's a sensitive issue, and I know that's not what people want to hear. And I know that we are all tired of COVID and the implications this had on our day-to-day lives, what we've had to give up, the sacrifices people have made as far as connecting with people. We're talking about the disease aspect of it, but there's the behavioral health aspect of it, and the isolation where we haven't been able to engage in a lot of larger scale events. And it's hard to convey when we see that data, and we were there at the beginning and we saw those cases, and to see similar cases because of this variant, again, it's hard to convey, what those families are going through. So again, please ask questions. Please ask questions if you have concerns and you're on the fence about getting your vaccine. We'd be happy to answer those.
You're not talking to us, are you?
No, I'm talking
Because I
to the
think everyone's
audience.
been vaccinated.
No, because I think that's important. I think it's important to have those conversations and have that dialogue. And I think it's important to acknowledge that people have concerns and acknowledge the reasons why they have those concerns. And as a public health official, it's my job, it's our job to answer those questions and to provide that information so that you can make a decision, you as an individual and the public, to protect your family and protect yourself. So yes, it's good to ask questions.
All right, okay. Any other questions? It is good to ask questions, but not too many.
I have one more. Have we asked our directors and our other departments if they would like a clinic? And if they would, have we offered them?
We did that at the beginning. We work with the different departments.
We did that, yeah.
Yeah, we
Are
haven't.
we still doing that?
No, we haven't done that again, only because vaccines are readily available. In the health department, at least for our part, we continue to have Monday through Thursday vaccine opportunities from 8:30 to 11. And so we would like appointments, but walk-ins are welcome. So that's still an option. And agency heads, the message has been it's you have that ability to go. So the flexibility and the support for that, has always been here within the county. But that is open to anybody else. And again, our nonprofit partners and a lot of the clinics still host in our pharmacies those opportunities. So again, if anybody wants to set anything specific to their location, their agency, then we can.
I guess we just want the department heads to know that if they feel that they have enough of a group in their different department, that the health department may be just more than willing to go out and vaccinate. That's basically the message.
Yeah.
Vaccination to us, it's not, to me anyway, it's becoming more and more an issue of going to where people are. Taking away the convenience, the timing, the issue of hours. And I don't mean just the health department. I mean, just anyone that is going to be doing this. It's going to get a little tricky now. I think that the numbers are so low that it almost makes it difficult to get the team, the health department team anywhere, where you don't vaccinate more than 50 people or 60 people or 70 people, taking a lot of nurses and nurse assistants to a location. It's getting increasingly difficult and not as productive as it used to be. From my experience, it's not as productive as it used to be, but still needed. And it's probably how we're going to get over some of the barriers that people put in front of them, to get vaccinated.
Right, access shouldn't be an issue. We should be able to encourage that. And I think, we have a lot of vaccines for a lot of vaccine preventable diseases. And I think one of the tricky parts with COVID is that you can't really see that. You hear about people getting infected, but the long-term recovery, particularly for those long haulers, are things that happen in private or things that people don't really talk about. So you see numbers, but it's very hard to convey what that looks like, those numbers look like in terms of people, because we don't see those symptoms. You hear those stories because obviously they're isolated or quarantined. And those people that have lingering effects, you don't really hear about those things as often versus other diseases that we have vaccines for. You see people with measles, chickenpox, mumps. That is a very visible, very obvious manifestation of a virus. So when you see that, people see that and they're like, okay, that's there. COVID is more of a, you see the numbers and we've all kind of gotten a little desensitized because it's not something that physically manifests itself, publicly, like the other ones do.
Supervisor Porches, because otherwise you could be here all morning.
Do the vaccines still come through Yuma County to the health department and you distribute it to the nonprofits?
No. So now what's happened a couple of months ago, what happened originally when we had a very limited supply, they would come to us and we would work with people that had onboarded. We would allocate vaccine. So the first thing that happened was the federal government started allocating to our FQHCs directly and then to the pharmacies. And then for the last 3 months, anybody that's onboarded, so whether you're a clinic or a nonprofit who provides clinical services, has the ability to go in and request vaccine directly from the state. So those opportunities are there. So we're not.
You still get registered when they're applied, right?
Right. So but we don't allocate unless we've done instances where, for example, we were hosting a clinic and we needed more of one type or another, and we can transfer, we can help people, we can provide that short-term bump in vaccines if they're short, or swap with other people to make sure that everybody has what they need. But to your point, providers can now directly access the amount of vaccine they want to host the event that they wish to host directly. They don't need to come through us.
No barriers that we can't.
There is no
we're
barriers.
Not limiting the number. We're
No,
not distributing the number. We're just simply trying as much as possible as a health department to make sure that more people get vaccinated.
Yeah, and as a country, we are very privileged to be in a position where we have an excess of supply. I mean, we have it available, and there's been a lot of work behind the scenes to make sure that it's accessible and that it's free. But again.
All right. Well, I'm not going to say if there's any more questions. There will always be. Thank you very much, Diana. And, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to keep coming back and give us an update. I did look at that map initially that showed Yuma County as in the moderate level, and there was a yellow one, I think,
yes.
one in the state. And it was either Santa Cruz or Cochise, but yeah. So now we're moved into the, we're getting out of the moderate one, huh? The latest?
So now we moved into substantial, like most of the counties, and the other 11 counties.
And I want to make a point because it may scare a lot of people, and I want to make it clear. The percentages that we look at of increase are not compared to the percentages that or the numbers that we had like 6 months ago or 8 months ago. Normally, they are a reflection of a weekly or bi-weekly trend.
Correct.
So if we say we've gone up by 20%, doesn't mean we've gone up by 20% compared to, say, a year ago. Yeah, a year ago. We've gone up by 20% compared to last week. And so the trend is up and it's fast.
And so again,
the numbers of deaths, for one, are minimal from what I can, I mean, look, I know that this is going to sound cruel. For the people who lose someone, that doesn't mean nothing. I mean, one death is too much. But in reality, when we went from having 20, 30, 12, 10 a day to now that you have 1 or 2 or 3 a week, it's bad. It's really bad. But the numbers are pretty low in terms of what they used to be a year ago. It's just that we're trending upward, and that's worrisome.
We're trending upward. And again, thank you for bringing that up, because I think the data is meant to inform, and the data is meant to encourage questions and dialogue, and it's meant to inform. It's not, sometimes people say, well, the data is trying to scare people, you're trying to, no, it's meant to inform, and it's meant to encourage additional dialogue, like your question about the percentage of variance. And asking those questions, particularly in this forum, allows for a wider audience to have access to those answers. So, yes.
It would be nice to see it in context, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, it would be. But what I mean is with data can be made to look or to sound almost anyway, depending on who presents it. I mean, it's very difficult to make it just because if we look at variants, for example, and try to separate the variant, if we look at the percentage of 12 years old versus the percentage of 20 years old versus the percentage of 80 years old, they're all going to show different numbers. It's a lot of data to try to compress into a simple message. We try to simplify the message by actually just saying to people or telling people, look, if you're vaccinated, the likelihood of you ending up in a hospital with serious health conditions is minimal. While if you're unvaccinated, you allow yourself get into a situation that's difficult. But it's still a choice that people need to make themselves, and that's what we're getting at.
To your point, but specifically talking about keeping things in context, I had another constituent send me a note saying, for example, in England with that last uptick, kids were far more prone to die of suicide than of any type of sickness related to COVID. And in Arizona last year, our number one cause of death for kids was suicide. So freaking them out with numbers that are not in context and people making decisions out of context is what I am opposed to.
And
because they look at their lives being canceled.
and it's not,
I
and again,
don't want to go down that road again.
and you can look at the different, there's some scary statistics out there. And to your point, that's another thing, that's another conversation that we need to have. And because that's a very startling statistic and accurate statistics as far as the numbers of suicide. The data is meant to inform. And if you go on because it's been so long, people wanted numbers in the beginning, and so the state has complied, and we have a very comprehensive dashboard, and you can see that trending data from week to week, and you can see the number of tests, and you can see the number, and it's there, it's free, it's available, you could look at it any day. So again, data is not meant to alarm data is meant to inform. And depending on which statistic you look at, which is again why the data is meant to encourage that dialogue, because context is everything. And there's a lot of issues and a lot of problems that we need to work on, and a lot of preventable things that we certainly need to address. And so again, this is just meant, again, to inform so that you as an individual can make a decision about what you need to do to protect yourself and your family. So again, it's just
we keep talking about vaccinating young kids, and yet the percentage of children who've actually contracted the COVID virus is minimal. I mean, like almost infinitesimal, right?
It's significantly lower.
Friday night, I had a girl goes to my congregation who attempted to do something like that because basically life had been canceled over the last year, didn't want to resurge in that way. So for me, it's very personal. So I want to make sure that in the context of what we communicate, and I shared with Governor Ducey's mandate with all of our leaders throughout the community, helping them understand that they can't mandate that, can't go in and cancel kids' lives again.
Yeah.
They are not at risk for doing that.
Yeah, the problem with that, and I read that memo from the governor, is that at the end he had to put something overly political on it, and we're in an overly politicized situation now, and to add something like, well, because of the Biden administration was uncalled for, and it made me think that in reality, we're not dealing with this as a science-based situation. We're still dealing with it as a political situation, and I hate that. And that's why people like you, who are supposed to look at these things a lot more objectively, it's what we need. We need people to tell us, some facts, and then we need to make decisions based on those. Because if we made a political decision, it would be wrong. We're not talking about, like I said before, if it's one too many. From the COVID, and comparing it to other sicknesses, it's also playing around with the data, because we're not comparing it to suicides, we're not comparing it to the flu. I hope we're not, because this is a sickness of its own. It's a pandemic of its own. It kills people on its own, regardless how many people die from falling off their bikes or from falling off trees. That's not what we want to mix it up with, according to me. We just want to deal with this as it is. It's COVID-19, it's a pandemic, it's killed 620,000, well, some people would even question that it's killed 620,000 people. We're looking at scientific ways to try to deal with this. Because if we start getting into the political discussion and pushing our views in it, we're gonna make it last a lot longer, and we're gonna get involved in some discussions that they're not gonna get us anywhere, really. We're just gonna be a lot of discussion about it, and then we're gonna end up with a political decision, and I hate that. I don't think this is the place, I don't think this is the time. And so I'm going to have it up during the next meeting so we can take action on the mask mandate, because I don't think there's going to be a mandate. There's going to be a discussion regarding the use of masks, and we'll get there. Right now, I don't want to come and ask you to come over with us and then get involved in a discussion about, whether the data points this way or points that way, points the other way. That just, again, that's just going to get us into discussion. Thank you for the presentation, and hopefully you will like to come back next, 2 weeks from now, and we'll ask all the pertinent questions then. Okay, thank you very much. Now, Tony, you want to come up? No, I wouldn't either, but you come up anyway, just so people can know who you are and what you do. Tony Badia.
Chairman Tony Padilla, Emergency Management Director. Nothing further to add other than the testing ability is still there, and you can check the county website for most of the facilities. Most of them are medical facilities. We only have, I think, one contract site out at, I think it's St. John Newman Church. The rest of them have closed up, and so you go to your local pharmacy or your local urgent care, and also some of the other medical facilities that offer that. They are on the website. So that's all I have for you.
All right, well, thank you. Any questions for?
I just had a real quick, and it's not reference to COVID, and I was hoping to catch Josh before he got out of here too. I wanted to thank Tony, Public Works, and the Red Cross. We had that storm hit out in Tacna about a week ago. He got out there with his people, with the Red Cross. Sheriff's Office had extra people out there. Public Works responded quickly to get the roads closed and cleaned up the best they could. But I just wanted to thank you guys for the response you guys did. It was outstanding.
It is always outstanding, may I say?
And I was out there yesterday driving through just to make sure the other storms came through, didn't cause any more havoc out
We
there.
used to say
and
the same
everybody
thing about
survived.
gassing all the time. It's a quick response. There are just little areas where people concentrate a lot, and they're urbanized, but they don't have the way to deal with a lot of this
Right,
stuff. So
right.
it's
And
nice
a
to
lot
see
of
the
community
county
members
act.
out there took care of each other. And
Yeah,
that's what we
that's-
found out there. And I know Supervisor Lyons was out there the other day and saw some of the devastation out there and some roofs roofed off.
I was contacted by the American Red Cross to do some assessments for them as well, and just thank you for responding.
Yeah, it feels nice for people to know they have a level of government that will assist them when they get into a situation like that.
We do what we can, but we use a lot of the other resources like you
Oh, then you
mentioned.
see, you
Yeah.
got up and you got a lot of things. Thank you. All right. Okay. So we're going to move on, or try to move on, into more of the items that we need to discuss and make decisions on. So the human resources is next, and it's to award the bid to Seagull for 1-year consultant and actuarial services for Yuma County Employee Benefit Trust, effective August 15, 2021, with 4 renewable terms per 5-year pricing, and to authorize the Director of Human Resources to sign all necessary documents related to the consultant and actuarial services. Felicia?
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. Felicia Frausto, Human Resources Director. As you have in your package, you had information that outlined all of the vendors that were presented to the Yuma County Employee Benefit Trust. We had 3 vendors, CBiz, Siegel, and Holmes Murphy. We had a committee of 5 members, which range from a member from our Employee Health Team Committee, the members of our Benefits Division, myself, and then as well as 2 observers to be participant on that committee. The committee met, we shared our findings and recommendations to the Yuma County Employee Benefit Trust on July 29th. Those findings with the recommendations, the trust then also with an agreement are recommending to the Board of Supervisors to award our consulting services to Siegel for the renewable terms per 5-year pricing. As you'll see noted, the pricing was noted in your packet, so that this way it is truly a benefit for us to utilize these services to help us to definitely maintain the services that we've been able to help us in maintaining a really healthy Yuma County Employee Benefit Trust plan. With that, I will entertain any questions.
Just one comment. You can't argue with success. They've been pretty successful, and I think that the results have been outstanding. So, I'll go back to what changed horses in the middle of the stream, right? They've been doing very good. As a member of the Benefit Trust Board, I see their work probably more often than anyone else, and I think they do an excellent job. Any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second to approve item number 2 as presented. Any discussion on the item? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries, and thank you, Alicia. And we'll go to county administrative elections, and we will do, we will be sitting as the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, but the decision would be to either revoke the authority of the Martinez Lake Resort Unit Number One Road Improvement and Maintenance District Board of Directors due to the lack of quorum and call for a special all-male election for the Board of Directors and sitting as the Board of Directors of the Martinez Lake Road Improvement District, adopt resolution of 2021-22, adopting a tax levy for 2021-22 for the RIMD, which is the Road Improvement and Maintenance District. Now, this looks a little confusing. So we sit as a Board of Supervisors, right? And then we revoke the authority of the Martinez Lake Resort Unit Number One Road Maintenance Board of Directors because they don't have a quorum. And then we call for a special all-male election. And then, because we have removed that board, we're sitting as Board of Directors of Martinez Lake Road, adopt a resolution setting the tax rate. Does that pretty much summarize it?
That summed it up very well, yes. Would you like a little bit of background on this item?
Not really, but if you want to, fine. I mean, the way I look at it, I don't know if I want any more. I think I've heard enough, but if anybody is out there that wants to address the board, you may want to give a brief background.
Okay, Tiffany Anderson, Election Director for Yuma County. Just a brief background on this item. The Martinez Lake Road Improvement and Maintenance District was established in 2009. Our understanding is that it's been run since then like an irrigation district rather than a road improvement and maintenance district, which have very different operating principles when it comes to the election of their governing board members and eligibility of those members. So the two apparent members of the sitting board at the time that we submitted this item are not qualified electors of the road improvement and maintenance district. Even if one were, then we don't have a quorum, which is a 3-member board, so it's still lacking quorum. The Board of Supervisors has the authority in statute to revoke the authority of the governing board for the road improvement and maintenance district, sit on their behalf, and call a special election in order to seat members who are qualified electors of the road improvement and maintenance district. That's the item that is before you today, is to take action on the decision to whether or not to revoke that authority and to call a special election on their behalf. There's also a piece, since there is a deadline for adopting tax rates. Mr. Gil Villegas is here as well if you have questions on that. To act on behalf of the governing board in your temporary capacity for the district to adopt their tax levy for this fiscal year.
In theory, does the actual board exist? If they can't, I mean, they do exist, they have members, just don't make a quorum?
Not qualified electors is
Or
what she
not
said.
qualified, so it doesn't exist.
Correct. It's technically vacant at this time.
Okay, so
Yeah.
why would we dismiss or?
Is there anybody here representing any of that group?
I'm not sure if anyone from the community came today.
Does anybody here from the community? I mean, I can open it up a little bit to the public for anybody to make a comment.
Do you have a specific question, Supervisor Lyons? I'm sorry, Chairman
I
Reyes.
wondered if anybody from that arena was here to represent themselves as we're dismissing them to make
Oh,
a
we're
case
not-
for themselves.
We're trying not to dismiss them. What we're
Right,
trying to
but-
do is take into account the fact that they may not feel the same way we do.
Just wondering.
Essentially, our understanding and with the guidance from County Attorney's Office is this is a non-functioning district at the time.
Okay.
And they have no ability within law currently to become an operating district because they don't even have a governing board to call an election to have their governing board
So what does it mean
working.
to not be a qualified elector?
I'm more concerned with the way it's worded. It says revoke the authority. That is a concern, but that's why I ask, if they don't exist, why would we be revoking any authority?
That
We're
is-
just taking over.
It's using, it's statutory language that the board
Okay.
has to
Okay, all right.
authorize
That's what I
you
was
to
worried
take
about.
action.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is the mechanism that will get that election moving and this board reestablished
Okay.
correctly.
All right.
And Chairman Reyes, to address Supervisor Lyons' question, that is a question that's come up frequently within the community. We've received several calls with concerns of what does a qualified elector mean? Since it's been run as an irrigation district, which elects their members based on property ownership, That's been the understanding in the community since 2009. The reality is that they were under the wrong statutory guidance, and a qualified elector for the Road Improvement and Maintenance District is a resident of the district who is registered to vote within the district.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get this one rolling.
No, I was just gonna say, it out there, it's so intermingled with California residents and Arizona residents, and I think that's where the problem came from.
Okay.
A lot of the people that were sitting on the board, or the couple that were not residents.
Right.
But they lived within.
Think they're Californians?
They are property
Qualifies
owners.
me right away.
Property owners, but
But,
Yeah, but
okay,
they're
so
not registered voters.
let's fix it, as much as we can.
I'll make the
So
motion.
You'll make the motion to remove or revoke the
revoke.
authority of the Martinez Lake Resort Unit and due to a lack of quorum and call for a special all-male election for the board of directors. Now, do we have to set anything, like dates or anything? Or do we do that once we do that, once we
Or will
revoke
you
it?
do that?
The date is already listed in the agenda item, and the elections director is in charge of that, handling that election.
All right. So there's a motion.
I'll
The
second.
first one is A, right? So you're making a motion A, and then we will sit as a board of directors after we
And
do
B.
it number one. Well, you can't. Well, I guess you could, but you have to do it in sequence, right? You have to do A first and then B second, right? Right?
Do them in sequence. It'll
Okay,
just come
all
out.
right. Okay, we're gonna do it. Okay, Supervisor Lyons is making a motion for A and B without being specific. B goes after A. So there's a motion to approve the item as presented, A and B.
I'll second.
There's a second to approve the item as presented. Any discussion on the items? No? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
That was painful. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
didn't vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. No, no.
Oh, all
aye.
right.
I vote with the majority. Aye.
Okay.
All right. So that, I hope that takes care of that item. I think it's gonna come back sometime.
Well, this, Mr. Chairman, if I should say, this has been an ongoing thing. It's probably been the last 2 years. I think we've been dealing with this, trying to figure it out, so.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman,
finish the count.
Mr. Chairman,
Didn't I? Oh, that's, I
there
didn't
any-
say. Anybody opposed? Anybody opposed? No? The motion carries.
thank you.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it.
But anyway, this has been an ongoing thing for probably a year and a half, 2 years. We've been trying to sort through this to figure out what we need to do to make it a legitimate district and to get things
That would have been
straightened
an
out.
argument to get a vote, right? It's already pretty much done. Let's move on. County administration. Discussion and possible action to authorize the county administrator to amend the Emergency Rescue Assistance Program agreement with the Western Arizona Council of Governments to increase the percentage of disbursement for administration of the Emergency Rural Assistance Program in Yuma County. Is this going back to, we do all these kind of reviews and we only get paid for the ones that pass? Because I think that's the way that summarizes it. You can review 5 or 6 applications and end up approving one, and you only get paid for one. Is that
That's
the beginning of this discussion?
So, Mr. Chairman, good morning, members of the board. Nancy and I with County Administration, if you give me a couple of minutes, I will give you some background on the program and where we're at. And before we open the discussion regarding the fees. So the Treasury had provided the funds for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. I may say ERAP from here on. I tend to use acronyms, apologize for that. They provided $6.5 million for Yuma County under the first go-around back in the beginning of the year. And then allocated another $5 million under ERAP 2 around April period. In any case, we have contracted with Western Arizona Council of Government to implement the program. And at the time that we negotiated a contract with them, knowing that the Treasury only allowed 10% for administrative costs, we realized it was low, but we had estimated that there will probably be about 100 applications that will go through the process at least during the month, and essentially average amount maybe around $10,000 per household size. So to date, we have only processed, as of June 30th, 150 recipients have been approved. They actually have received more than that in application. And the amount that was approved was 816,000, around approximately that. So if you look at the amount that was distributed, it's only averaging now to be about 5,000, a little more than 5,000 per household versus 10. So that the volume that's coming in and the amount per averaging per household is a lot lower than we had anticipated. And across the country, the demand for the URAP program actually has been relatively low, except within the highly metropolitanized areas. And that tells me one thing. It essentially tells me that the amount of rental unit available in rural area is very lacking. So even within Yuma County, the amount of applications that we had received, what was been processed, we had 8 from the city of San Luis and 8 from the city of Somerton out of the 158. So that's a story in itself, I think. Like I said, we are hampered by the administration costs that's allowable under the program. And we had retained 1.5% only because, aside from cost of staff to process the program, it does take a lot of work. It also takes a lot of costs in supplies, marketing costs, and most of all, there are audit charges for the program. I'm expecting it to be anywhere from 10 to 20,000 per year that the county will be charged for audit on this program alone. So that's something to keep in mind as you go through the discussion. For the month of July, we have processed approximately around the same amount as the month of June. June, we processed 54. So we are on the uptake in terms of number of applications. So that's a good sign as well for us. So the reason we're here is, and folks from Western Arizona Council of Government is here to answer any questions you may have, is that because the volume and the demand is low, the average is low, the 8.5% is not able to cover their costs to administer the program. We utilize Western Arizona Council of Government to do the front end of the program, which is the intake, the eligibility, and then they send it to us, and we do the back end, which making contact with the landlord, processing the payment, issuing the checks out to the landlord and the utility company. But I feel that the board had made the right decision in retaining the funds in Yuma County. From the statistics that's been gathered, only about 20% of the applications that's been received had actually been going through the online portal. So that tells me that a lot of our applicants do want that local contact.
So what are you asking us to do?
Or they need that local contact because they don't have access to the computers and stuff.
I've got a couple questions,
Yeah,
Mr.
well,
Chairman.
okay, but first of all, let me get to it. What are you asking us to do?
Raise their.
Well, yeah, but say it. Raise the percentage to what, or what are you asking us to do?
I'll let Waycock ask that question. I'll answer that question. We're only, in terms of the grant, only allowed 10% maximum under administration costs.
And we're currently paying 8.5 because we thought keeping 1.5% would help us
So out of the 10%, yeah, out of the 10%, 8.5% was contracted to WACOG, we're retaining 1.5%. Under ERAP 2, there is a slight increase, 15%, but we're barely into the ERAP 2 program, and you can't cover one or the other, just so you know.
So let me see if I get this straight. The federal government sent us some money and gave us 10% for administration. To get it done, we contracted with an outside agency, WACOG in this case, and we gave them 8.5%. That 8.5% isn't covering the cost of the application and the processing and so forth, and we kept 1.5%. What is your solution to that? Giving them the other 1.5%, would that be enough? Would we have to cover? Well, we would anyway. I mean,
Mr.
we have to
Chairman,
do it.
I have a couple of questions prior to getting to that.
All right, ask them.
Okay, so noting that this item was going to be on the agenda, I reached out to Arizona Multifamily and a number of other people who represent the larger rental agencies across the state. And they sent me a list of concerns that they had, how it was being processed here in Yuma versus how it was being handled through DES. Originally, I was a proponent for working through the WACOG and keeping it local. However, there seems to be some disparity with the online applications and the effectiveness, and they complained of not getting responses back when they sent inquiries on behalf of the owners that they represent. So I submitted those questions to Susan, and prior to consenting, I would like the rest of the board to be made aware of those concerns, have those questions answered, and that we should table this until 2 weeks, so that we understand that process and the disparity that's been complained about comparatively with WACOG and DES processing.
Was part of your presentation not a statement where you said only 20% of those applications are made online? Are these people, do they have a presence in Yuma, a physical presence, Supervisor Lyons? Or is it just?
Oh, no, they have a physical presence, yes.
No, I don't think so.
I'm sorry, who specifically? DES, no, does not have a physical presence.
They don't have a physical
But
presence.
their percentage of people processing statewide is higher than we are in Yuma. We're at one of the lowest rates according to their numbers.
Well,
I just want to have that processed and make sure that we are approaching it apples for apples.
Okay. Well, it will never be apples for apples because every area is individual. It's individually
But even in the
different.
smaller communities throughout the state, they're
Well,
still
I
processing at a
heard
better
eight,
rate.
8 people from San Luis, 8 people from Somerton. Now I am in the housing area. That's where I do most of the time. And I can tell you right now that people in the San Luis area, for example, who used to be in unemployment and used to get $240 a month, used to get in trouble paying their mortgage. But now, when they were getting $600, $800 a week, they didn't get in trouble. I have 350 units that I quote manage, right? In the San Luis area and Somerton area. Don't have any rate of payment, mortgage payments. Why? Because people that used to be in trouble in the summer didn't get in trouble in the summer. So I know that there's a reason for that. The second part of that is that people in San Luis and Somerton do not use the internet as much. They still like that physical contact. So if that's the reason why when somebody said DES, I said, no, DES doesn't have a physical presence anymore. They want you to file the unemployment through the internet, which is probably more a sign of the times, but it's not necessarily a sign of the area. It's a sign of the times. That's why I said, okay, so if those people have presence, because they represent the landowners, if they have a presence in town, if DES can handle that 20% or 30% maybe, because it probably changes depending on which area it comes from, then it's be fine. I think we need to look at it anyway, but to me, the solution was a little different than that. The solution to me was to expand the network, local network, and see if you could get more, other nonprofits to process and be able to send the information to the county, because it's getting, Western Arizona Council of Governments is taking the brunt. This is a federal program that essentially, to me, simply said, okay, well, let's deal with the pandemic issue, the mortgage issue, those kind of things. And in reality, the government did so many other things around it that essentially we ended up with a non-existing major problem with a major problem that really doesn't exist that much. That's why we have $7 million and we can only use $800,000 throughout the time we've had it. It's a real disconnect, but I'm not sure it can be solved by outsourcing it. That's basically what we do, outsourcing it to to statewide program that can handle the internet, can handle those type of things. I'm not sure that that's necessarily a solution, but more than glad to take a look at it. And if
I'd simply like to take a look at it.
yeah, if Wake Up can wait a couple of weeks, it's fine. But this is a problem that is not. I don't see it. I particularly don't see it getting worse. I think the money's there. It's just that the program needs to be adjusted to be handled properly. And 10% is not going to handle it properly. 15% was more a doable thing to me. If that said 15% can be used, that is a more normal kind of fee that probably an organization like Wake Up can handle. I don't know. I can wait. It's not
I'd simply
an
like us
emergency.
to consider it
Yeah.
and look at it.
Okay. All right. What else? You said two things. Is that the two things?
I just, whatever questions I submitted to Susan, if she'll send them back to you so that we can read through that and
All right.
look at do some analysis on it.
Brian, do you want to address the board?
Sure. I'm Brian Babyars, Executive Director of WACOG. 1235 Redondo Center Drive in Yuma. I'd be glad to answer some of your questions, and I think Gina Whittington, who's our Deputy Director, is more statistically involved in the day-to-day operations, so maybe she can help with that explanation. What I wanted, first of all, there were a couple of things I wanted to talk about. One is that, we keep calling this the administrative cost or administrating the program. None of this is administrative. This is a program cost. The costs that we're using are costs of intake people and all the people that are there because the program's there. We wouldn't have those people if it wasn't for that program. So I think when we start talking about those kind of things, we get off on a side note. The other thing I wanted to talk about is what Chairman Reyes said, and that is that they're only paying for the ones that we actually approve. All of the other ones, and about half of the applications every month are not approved for whatever reason. Most of the time, and they're not because of our fault, unfortunately. They're usually people don't, not necessarily because of our fault, but it's probably because they didn't bring back the paperwork or whatever. And I think your characterization of the rural areas is correct. There's a lot of necessity for hand-holding. I mean, quite frankly, the portals that you're talking about at DES and at the Department of Housing has had a similar program. They're not going to help you through this process. If you can get through it, that's fine. And your percentages are good for those people who really understand the program. But for the rest of them, they're going to be left out on the outside. And that's where we come in, I think, most of all. The other thing you might want to understand is over the weekend with the eviction moratorium that's been pulled back by the feds, I think you're going to see a tremendous increase. Again, since we don't have the number of rental units that the metropolitan areas do, we may not see the kind of reaction that they're going to get, but I think you're going to see a reaction from this moratorium being pulled back after this. But Gina had a comment she maybe wants to make about the numbers that you're talking about.
Your name, address, social security number, checking account. No,
Gina Whittington, I'm the Deputy Director with WACOG, Western Arizona Council of Government, 1235 South Redondo Center Drive, 85365. Thank you for having me. I think one of the things that I added in your packet was our assessment of kind of how this program has evolved and the assumptions that we made prior to it happening. Of course, we saw, all these people that were unemployed and that there would be a large number of people who had 12 months back rent. And this program was designed to help people up to 12 months back and then 3 forward, or how many ever back up to a total of 15 months. One of the reasons in the talks we had with Yuma County and Nancy in the beginning was accepting this money in Yuma County. If this money would have gone to DES to process, it would have been added to the total state pool, and the $6.5 million wouldn't have been spent in Yuma County, wouldn't have assisted those residents in Yuma County. I think that the methodology from Treasury on down has created this perfect storm in rural areas that because you're only reimbursed for not the approved applications, but the approved applications amount of money. So that 8.5%, when we didn't see, you know, $10,000 worth of back rent owed, and we didn't have the number of applicants coming through our door needing that. And again, that's another story. I think there are a lot of reasons why, to this point, we haven't gotten those number of applicants. It doesn't allow you to keep your capacity in line to address those applicants that come to your door. Right now, it's taking us about 2 weeks to process applications. So again, in the pie chart.
One application?
Well, no, we're processing them all in almost an assembly line fashion. So we're getting right back to people. We're talking to them. We're looking at the documents they have, what other information we need. We're talking to the landlords to verify their rental obligation. And so it's a process of processing those applications, but having everything there, we can do it like that. It's 2 weeks to process the applications. So there is not a backlog. Right now, we have the money, we have the capacity, we don't have the applications. And in rural areas, it does get down to the numbers. And not having that back rent and the number of applications up front really put us in a hole as we move forward. I sit on the eviction stakeholders groups and where we talk to the landlords and we talk to the tenant advocate groups. And DES is also experiencing this issue because they only have an electronic portal. They have a phone number. People in our area can't navigate those systems. They don't know how to download documents. They don't know how to, get on a portal. And one of the things that we did here locally was create 3 different ways to access our service. We do have an online through our website. We have an email address so people can print off their documents, complete them, email them to us. We have drop-off and pickups that are all around the county in each of the municipalities. And what we've seen is about 70% of people still apply, picking up, dropping off. They don't go to our online option and they don't go to our email. So, and some of those statistics are given to the county each month. So this isn't really we don't have the numbers in rural Arizona. And in fact, DES only processes applications in outlying counties. The municipalities in Maricopa County, City of Phoenix, Pima County, they have the numbers, they're spending their money, they're processing applications. DES is not. They're behind just like we are because the number of applicants aren't there. And they created a huge system to access only through a portal their application assistance. So that gives you a little bit more of the variables.
All right.
Mr.
Supervisor Pinkhurst.
Gina, how do we get more people to apply? Because I know there are people out there that need this assistance. I mean.
Yeah, the trend is going up. We are getting more applications. Well, it is going up the more applications we get. It's a steady incline. And the number of approved applications is going up too. So that trend is going upward. And I think because of the extra unemployment, the
checks.
Thank you, stimulus. I want to call it something else.
Well, it is.
Stimulus checks, taxes, all of those things happened at the beginning of this program. So, and the moratorium ending, I think we will see more applications. I don't think it will be 12 months back rent. And we have a lot more, the tenant landlord associations, we have a lot less housing stock and a lot less large complexes. So a lot of our landlords they have one house that they rent out. So there's mom and pop landlords.
In the one houses, a lot of them are through a Section 8 voucher or something. So,
and some of them don't want to provide that W-9. So there's that also in the room. provide a W-9.
Yeah, which is what you send the federal government.
Yeah.
Additional income is what it boils down to.
So there's a lot of outlying factors that play into this. We are processing every application that comes through, and we're usually doing that in 2 weeks. So it's not, and we do talk to the landlords in the process of getting what the back rent is owed, whether they'll accept the program. So I don't know if we've been lumped into DES or in the outlying areas or Maricopa County and Pima County. They definitely are distributing their money and have the numbers to do so. But DES, since they're working for outlying communities, it's the same issue we're having. There's not enough applications. And they only have one way.
And when there is enough applications, not enough of them qualify to cover the cost. So you end up with dual problems.
Yes.
That's not going to change much. If you get a lot more applications and you keep the same percentage of approvals, you're still going to have a problem because you're going to have to take all these applications, process them through. And the issue of being able to pay for it, that's the issue in front of us right now. I think that there's two issues, actually. One is that the demand is lower than expected. And second, that the cost is higher than expected. And that the entity that we assign this work to is saying, hey, wait a minute, we're paying for this instead of being paid for it. And that's becoming an issue. And then there's a bunch of questions that Supervisor Lyons has provided for us. So hopefully you don't have an emergency situation that can't wait for 2 weeks, because we're going to have to run through those questions.
Yeah, I think we're trending up, and I think that equation will be balanced out a little bit. I don't know that we're going to get out of the hole that we had through that trending upwards and going throughout the end of this program. Definitely the higher percentage that we can get will help us, and 15 will definitely help.
Is there a possibility, Nancy, that we could ask for a waiver? Is there something like a waiver at the Treasury Department that you can ask for that you guys know of? It's just, they sent you the regulations and they say live with them or die with them. Is that it? There's no request?
I wanted to, Mr. Chairman, ask about one other requirement. Are we required by October to expend X amount of the program?
That's what I thought.
65%?
That's what I thought that was my concern.
There is something that says that we're supposed to obligate 65% of that first allocation by October. And originally 100% by March of 2022. They have since extended the March deadline, so now we have until September of next calendar year to expend 100%. I think throughout the country,
Has the October deadline changed?
they have not issued any guidance on that.
Okay.
The consensus within the community across the country is that we don't think that the feds are going to retrieve that portion that's unexpended. They may on some of those larger, huge, multi-million-dollar allocations, states that receive, 300 million, they only spend 10, 20 million. They may retrieve some of those and reallocate it to areas that need the funds. But I think from what we've seen throughout the country, everybody's struggling to get the money out.
Oh, wow.
And I don't think we're going to be able to do that, no matter what deadline they gave us. I mean, the way it's going, we may have a crisis, may have a big crisis. But even a big crisis, I don't think we'll be able to spend 65% of that by October or November or December. I think that would be, I would say, I don't know if word is, lucky is not the word. I would be surprised if we get to spend 50% of that amount over the next 12 months. It doesn't look like it. The trend is not there. Yeah.
How do we identify what the bottlenecks are? And if we go to the 10%, will staffing solve the bottleneck?
It will allow us to maintain the capacity allocated to this program so that we can continue to process applications within a two-week time frame.
Are there any other bottlenecks besides staffing? I mean, If only 50% are coming back, or they still lack the information, is that part of the process?
Yes.
Part of the bottleneck?
And the W-9s that they talked about, there's a number of different reasons they don't follow through with the program.
I do think that getting the right documentation and having all of that information in place, no matter how you get it to us, is something that we've experienced. People aren't following through with getting that. I think that the county has done a great job in outreaching to municipalities. We've outreached to housing nonprofit groups so that they can help us in getting people, paper application to our online portal. In all those ways, I do think we'll have an increase of people. The only bottleneck we're seeing right now is being able to cover our costs to maintain the capacity to process the applications. I think we will get on a roll to where when somebody needs that help, we could potentially help them for current month and 3 months ahead. And that would be the average that we're assisting. I think in July, we're up to 1.1 million spent at the end of July. So it is jumping by big amounts, but.
But roughly 20% we've expended?
Mm-hmm.
1.5.
Our area. 1.1, yeah.
20-30%.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, maybe Susan could work with those questions that I provided and get the answers from WACOGs so that we have that data and that we can make good decisions based on those answers.
And I think we can put it as an addendum just to get it done in case, there's a process to get into the agenda that I know takes, a few days, but I think we can probably manage and get it solved quickly. We understand this is a timely issue. We like to continue. I mean, we're on this path that I think helps. It's just that essentially, I think that the combination of circumstances, of factors out there are not helping out. The urban settings are much different than the rural settings.
I truly think that's the big barrier, and it came from Treasury on down, is the methodology in which we have to get reimbursed.
Mm-hmm.
And, DES has a dashboard that shows the number of applications that have come in to the number of approved in outlying areas. And actually, we're assisting getting people to that portal in La Paz County and Mojave County, because those are areas we serve. But it doesn't tell you how many have applied and where they're at in the process. Nobody's reaching out to the landlord. Nobody's reaching out to them because that's not part of their process. The applicant has to reach to them, either by phone. So, what's going on with everybody who's applied, they're not getting the hand-holding that we're getting here.
And unfortunately, that's pretty common in South County.
It is. Yeah.
It is. And especially the elderly population, which is sometimes where they get in trouble.
What about the real estate industry? Have you guys reached out to the real estate industry? Because they manage so many.
We have. The Board of Realtors?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. And they've reached out to
We've
their
done
realtors.
presentations.
Good. Thank you. Okay. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go through those questions and get back to you as soon as possible. It won't take long. I mean, we'll try not to take too long, okay? It's a problem that I saw coming some time ago, and I was just hoping it would have worked itself out, but it isn't.
I might put this out there. I think this trend statewide to develop statewide portals and deliver services around the state is only going to increase.
Yes.
And it's a real problem for rural areas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, DES is a prime example. The unemployment situation in San Luis was almost unmanageable at one point in time.
And disbursement of road funds.
Yeah, and disbursement of road funds. And this is a complaining session by now. So thank you very much, and we'll be back at you, okay? Thank you very much. Yeah, I know. Nancy, we're going to be working on details, so get together with Susan and give us some options, please. Let's answer the questions and get some options that are workable, because we'd like to support the program. It's just that we don't want to do it at the stake of another organization. Well, Nancy, thank you very much, and this will be tabled to the next scheduled meeting. Do I hear a motion to table? Or
motion?
Second.
There's motion and second to table the item until the next meeting. Susan. Nancy, thank you very much. Susan, you know what the task is at hand. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The motion carries. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. Really? All right, let's get back to it. We are going into facilities management and for the approval of the proposal and authorize the facilities manager director to enter into a contract with Arcadis US Inc. for project management services for the new administration facility at 197 South Main Street in the amount of $294,976 for the period from August 3rd, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, utilizing Mojave contract number 18E-ARC-0817. And this is all subject to legal review, and we will have a short presentation.
We will. Chairman Reyes, members of the board, Dave Hillen, Director of Facilities Management. I am truly excited to be here today because we're at a point in this project progression where the team is starting to form and we can expect great things going forward. So the team I'm speaking of really is comprised of three main components. We'll be looking at, eventually we'll have a general contractor or construction manager at risk that'll be part of that team. That's a little further down the road. Today we're talking about the architectural and engineering team as well as the project management team, and that's the part that's up first. So when we talk about project management, we're talking about a team within itself that really acts as part of the ownership group, the county, representing the county every way necessary to make the project move forward. They will oversee all activities of the project and primarily are involved with making sure that we hit certain milestones along the way, that we stay on schedule, and most importantly, we stay on budget throughout the lifespan of that project. And in a moment, I'll have Bill come up and he'll talk a little bit about his team with Arcadis and how they approach the project and the roles that they play within Arcadis themselves for this project. I just want to point out too that you'll notice that we are requesting these funds, this first phase of the contract for Arcadis to take us essentially through the end of the design phase. All things progressing successfully at that point in time, there will be an additional contract to carry them through project completion.
David, let me interrupt you for a minute. Are some of the things you're talking about going to bleed onto the next item? You want me to open the next item? You may save you.
We hope to cover most of it with this first item actually, and just essentially present the architectural and engineer team. Open it up for questions at that point.
I'm going to open up the next item so that we can talk about it as one item. You may want to go in sequence, but still, I mean, number 6, it would be to approve the proposal and authorize the facilities management director to enter into a contract with BWS Architects for architectural and engineering services for the new administration facility design at 197 South Main Street in the amount of $2,168,973, utilizing Mojave contract number 21A-BWS-0507, subject to legal review. I know you're not going to take them together, but when you can, you will flow if you want to.
That's great. And with that, I will go ahead and invite Mr. Bill Descartes up to the podium. Bill is a vice president with Arcadis and oversees the Southwest region. And Arcadis has a history of working with the county as well as all across Arizona, of course. Most notably that they were the project management firm that oversaw construction of the 6 library branches about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And also have been working with the Yuma Union High School District on their bond construction projects as well recently. So with that, I'll ask Bill to come up and talk us through the presentation.
Great. Good morning, Chairman and Board of Supervisors. My name is Bill Lukart, Arcadis Area Manager, so I'll be the project director on this project. And as Dave said, we're really an extension of the county staff. I mean, we represent the county's interest almost in a fiduciary way, meaning that we're not vested in the design or the construction. We're here simply to administer the project, provide project management, really focusing on scope management, budget management, and schedule management. So we have a little presentation just to talk about how the team is formed now, next steps with a timeline, and then just kind of a high-level overview of the budget, and have an open discussion with a lot of questions, whatever we may have. So if you're ready to go forward, we'll talk a little bit about timeline.
Great, cool.
Get this to move forward. There we go. Oops, too far. Okay, so there's two ways we're going to look at the timeline. One is just in this narrative form. The second one is actually a milestone schedule. So this is a preliminary timeline because we're now just fully getting engaged with the project. BWS is joining the team contractually, assuming you approve both contracts. And so we're scheduled for a design kickoff meeting today, really take advantage, hit the ground hard, and get moving forward and continue with the momentum that's already been presented to the board. The design phase is shown as 11 months. And I think really, really important is these milestones. So schematic design is when the project really starts to take form and have shape and much, much more definition, plus a real strong scheduling and costing component. And that's a check-in point. I mean, it's a very important check-in point for the leadership with the county as well as with yourself to say, how's the health of the project? On budget, are we meeting the expectations of the county? That happens again at design development, much, much more detail getting driven in. And then again at 50% construction documents. So you could look at kind of three really important opportunities to get a good understanding of where the project's moving from a scope, schedule, budget perspective. Overlapping design, mostly towards the end of it, is the plan check, permits, and entitlements period. So that's a 3 to 5 month duration. 3 normally, it could be up to 5 if there's a parking variance required. So we're going to start planning for that now. GMP development, the third bullet down, we're recommending a CM at risk delivery method. It's the same delivery method that was used on your main library. It's often used for larger projects, more complex projects like yours. And that GMP development would be 3 months, and that would be overlapping the design permit, and it can help you accelerate your schedule completion. And so GMP development really starts right about at 50% construction documents. So you're pushing an overlapping, and there's a time advantage there. Early release construction package, we're anticipating, and we're going to have deep dives on getting the contractor moving quickly with abatement of hazardous materials that might be in the building, demolition of the building. And then the second package would be the main build-back construction of the 80,000 square foot building. So again, able to maximize the delivery method and accelerate schedule and really control costs better, honestly. Towards the end of the project and also overlapping construction is the FF&E county vendor installation. So by county direct purchasing, a lot of its furniture systems, its data systems, its AV systems, there's quite a bit of cost savings potential there. And that's something that we help manage. And that gets pushed in towards the end of construction, again, compressing the schedule. And the overall duration, we're forecasting 30 months is really the target. 33 months would be as if we weren't able to use the CM at risk delivery method, but we're anticipating recommending that and you approving that down the road, future. But we want to do everything we can to get this project open January 2024.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Think about it. Your library bond program was 33 months, right?
I know.
So, that's one of the things that if you build a schedule, this is the county's expectations for the project, relayed through. So as we negotiate and get the design team going, their schedules start to match that. We hire a CM at risk contractor, their schedules start to mesh that. So we're taking a very bold and strong position on the behalf of the county to say, time is important on this project as well as cost.
Fortunately, you're concerned about materials. It's 2-3 years down the road, according to this. So, what we're going through right now may or may not be the situation that we're dealing with 2 or 3 years down the road, but this is the way the project goes.
Exactly.
It'll be at least a year before we talk about probably contractors and cost.
Let me.
I shouldn't have said that because that's just going to open up another kind of worms and continue.
Yes. Okay. So this schedule is the same schedule we just looked at, and we're asking for approval. We'll be coming back to the board after working with your executives team to do a CMAR procurement. So that'll bring your contractor into the team in a pre-construction role.
Mhm.
Just very, very similar to what we're doing at the Somerton High School project.
Mhm.
And what that does is it tests
No.
materials, it tests the ability to do early contracting, steel, masonry, things that have long lead items. And it gives you, the county, the ability to contract those early to address the long lead items. So,
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
That was like the wrong approach because we were concerned about the cost now.
Right.
Right. So, it's not even, don't even go there. Just keep it moving.
Okay, so we've got the design phase up there, 11 months. Concurrently we have the very important schematic design development, construction document milestones. And then you get into the permitting and the GMP award, construction durations, and then FF&E move-in. So
Supervisor Lyons has a question regarding why would you recommend construction at risk? Or,
Yes.
As opposed to going for the lowest bidder. I think there's an answer there somewhere when I read it, but you may want to do that publicly.
Just so that it's on the record.
Yes, we're recommending construction manager at risk so that the owner, the county, can take advantage of moving the construction expertise forward into the design process and help with design over-the-shoulder reviews, but also to address escalation, being able to do early outreach, subcontractor outreach, really take advantage of moving things that you find out later in the process earlier into the process.
I think the best answer to that would be to me the fact that once you do it that way, the percentage of increases in cost goes lower as you get down to it. If you have 2 bidders, it's higher. If you have 4 bidders, it's higher. Lower, excuse me. As you increase the number of bidders, normally the cost of the project decreases, but the risk increases. So when you do a construction at risk, you're managing that up front. You're trying to, based on the studies that you presented to us, a construction at risk, it ends up being a lot cheaper than just going out to bid because it allows the owners to be involved in the process from the beginning with the contractor and looking for savings at the onset of the project as opposed to trying to figure them out as we go along.
Chairman, you're accurate. That's correct.
Right, so I answer your question. Keep it going.
Okay, any other questions on the preliminary schedule? Okay, and then just a recap of the budget. $2 million for design and construction administration, so that's the design work as well as the construction administration. There's survey work that needs to be done, and part of that, there's geotechnical exploit, environmental abatement, hazardous material surveys. Pre-construction would be permits, pre-construction fees from your general contractor, entitlements, utilities, things that you want to get pushed forward. You could really look at that like construction, but it's pre-construction. Construction at $24 million is the abatement, the demolition, and escalation. Escalation obviously is going to be an important issue to keep our eyes on in this project. Owner provided furniture, FF&E, at about $1.5 million.
This would be my wife's favorite subject, right?
Yes.
Having a new house and using old furniture.
Right. So a lot of important things going on there. AV, security access control system. Not $0.9 million for construction administration. Part of that is our fees. Some will be for inspections. Some will be for special inspections, testing, as well as move management. And we've added in a design phase contingency and a construction phase contingency. Essentially, those normally get translated into hard construction if the county chooses to use the contingencies, but they're there so that the team can keep moving and address any obstacles on budget that may present themselves. So we're forecasting a $33 million design and construction project.
Do we have?
A long way from the 5 million, 7 million. Yes, Supervisor Pancrazio.
I would like a copy of that. I can't find it in here. It's not in here.
We'll provide it to you.
Thank you. I'd like a copy.
All right.
Okay, so now we open it for questions, and we can also address any design questions with Robin and Frank. It's a fun team, and Chris.
I think the question I have
we've all worked together.
I think it's more a comment and how things move along and how they become what they have become now, a $30 million project from a simple remodeling of the other side of the street.
Mhm.
And it's a lesson in how, to me, it reinforces the idea that I've always had, that to open up an old building and try to remodel it, it's a fool's errand.
Yes.
That you're going to find things in there that
Don't
you
go
didn't
there.
expect it. Don't go there.
Don't
Don't
go
go. I'm
there.
not gonna go there. What, you have any other questions? Comments? Okay, well, thank you.
I'll just.
Oh, no, yes,
just
yes,
comment.
yeah, that's what I,
We have the furniture already. So what would-
I knew it. Yeah, that's what I said. My wife hear that, she'll cringe. You can't build a new building and move old furniture in there. There will be a lot of complaints. We tried that during, I think the assessors and the treasurers, and I call it the art building, because I don't want to call it the rat building, so it's the art building. And we tried that, trying to move some old furniture in. It was like a mutiny.
Yes.
It just it doesn't work. Oh, it has to have the different measures, and it's ergonomically not correct. Let's not even go there right now. Let's just concentrate on the two things in front of the agenda, in front of us. So the first item in the agenda is what you covered, right? Or did you try to cover both at the same time?
I think the design, you have an agenda item for design,
Yeah.
and so that's Mojave
So that's
pricing.
the first thing yeah.
Right.
Okay, guys, I know that this is a difficult decision for some of the newer members. It's not a difficult decision for some of the older ones who have been waiting for years to get to this portion of it. I think we've done well by most of the other departments. I remember the courthouse, when it was built, it was $25 million, and I thought that was the biggest project I would have been involved with. Was it? How much was it?
27.
27. See, I thought that was the biggest project I was going to get involved with. I did, this is kind of a sign of the times where you have a project that continually keeps going up, but I don't think that's going to change much. I think we need to make decisions, and we need to make them as quick as possible so we can move as quick as possible, because time is not on our side. So any more questions, comments? If not, if you want to
Well,
brief.
he was saying that it would have been less if, well.
Yeah, I know.
won't
If
go
it had been on board, if those guys would have been on board, it would have been less, 4 years ago. But anyway, let's get over that. And is everybody in agreement that this is the way we want to go? I mean, these people have shown that they can manage the projects. That library project to me was an eye opener. I mean, those 6 libraries took a long time to build, but they were built, and they're beautiful jewels of what I think we can do when we all get together and decide we're going to do something world class, as opposed to just doing something. Okay? So do I hear a motion?
Before you make that motion,
I'm not good.
Or before you call for a motion, Mr. Chair, this is just for Susan. In the future, I understand the time. We started talking about this, and we've been talking about this building for a long time. But in the future, I think I would like to see us going out for bids, or like to hire the architect, to hire the CMA at risk management company, just to open that up so we can see what's out there. I mean, I'm not saying that this is they're not gonna do a good job, but I just wanna, instead of just piggy riding with someone else, let's go in the future.
My concern, to my personal concern, had to do more with trying to use the local talent, local construction companies as much as possible. That's still a part of the process as far as I'm concerned, because I see Thompson here, I see some of the local elements that are going in. But this is a big project, and it's one that attracts, and it's what I suppose Supervisor Porches is referring to. It should attract the attention of many different teams that may want to try. And that was one of my concerns when I first read it. Now, I am inclined to use the team that I know. I'm inclined, that's just me, having the prior experience of having worked with you guys. I can already see we had some problems in the past with the Justice Court building wasn't free of issues and problems, and I think John will remember that. I remember that. And but the problem with experience is that you pay for it one time and you hopefully not repeat it, and that's why I'm inclined to go with the team that I know, as opposed to trying to figure out a new team. But as members of as elected members of the public, basically, we do have a task, which is to try to keep the cost as low as possible within the confines of doing it right. I think at this particular time, I see myself as voting for doing it right, and doing it with someone that we know can handle it, as opposed to finding a new partner that may or may not work out to make it. Normally, I found out that trying to do the project for less money doesn't end up costing less money. It ends up costing more money because sometimes people are learning through the process. I don't really want to learn on this one. What I want is for this project to go well. So I'm okay with the team as long as it's gone through legal review and we won't be in a situation where we've been told, look, you should have gone out to bid, you should have done this. And so everything says pending legal review, and I think that's the main issue. As long as it's legally, as long as it's legally correct to do it, I'm inclined to try to do it. I'm not inclined to give it more time. I think time is not on our side.
Mr. Chairman, subject to legal review, what does that mean, and what are we doing by just adding on to an additional or existing contract?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Lyons, this is what you're looking at as a request for qualification, something that went through it did go through a competitive bidding process through another agency of procurement through the state. So that did take place, and what you're looking at now is if you did it yourself or you caused it to be done, it's at the stage where you would award that proposal to that entity, and then we would begin the process of establishing the contract for the terms of service with the amount of dollars noted in the established proposal.
And it did go through a competitive bid.
Yes, apparently I did speak with your finance director. They did check the bidding process. It is consistent with the one we have in our own policy. That was an issue.
Did we hear from the finance director? Mr. Chairman?
I have no jurisdiction over that.
Definitely. And I just wanted to
you referenced him, so I just wanted him to have his own voice.
Well, to add to that point, I think we use this for buying sheriff vehicles, for example, where we go to a state-approved vendor that has already gone through the process of bidding and supplying the cost, and so we use them all the time. Although some of us would prefer to buy local, when you end up trying to get the best price possible, sometimes we just can't. I mean, the local supplier just can't. So we use that process to buy vehicles for the sheriff's department. So I think I know that the process is okay legally. It's just getting over the reservations about not going out to bid and doing that, because it was done already by the state or by a county, in this case, Mojave County.
And Mr. Chair, it's used by many entities and counties. I mean, this is a process. But I was just kind of in the future.
Yeah, making the point that.
Chairman, members of the board, to answer Supervisor Lyons' question, yes, we reach out to Mojave Institution. They do a full-blown RFP, request for proposals. They have the committee, they evaluate all the bidders, and that's how they award that contract to whomever might be the successful bidder. So following our professional services policies and consulting with legal, we determined that, yeah, we were correct in using this path to procure for those services.
Legally correct. All right, thank you. All right, so there were some questions, good questions. Now we need to make a decision. Do I hear a motion to approve or disapprove?
I'll move to approve
item number 5.
The proposal and authorize the facilities management director to enter into a contract with Arcadius for project management using the Mojave Corporate Purchasing Contract.
And subject to legal review.
And subject to legal review.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, there's been a motion and second to go ahead and approve item number 5 as presented. Any discussion on the item? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? There were some reluctant ayes in there that I can barely hear, but we're gonna assume there were ayes because they didn't say no.
A lot of money.
So I know it makes it's not we're not used to spending this much money. I know this board is reluctant to go through this, but you've got the first item approved. You want to go into the second one?
Briefly, Chairman Reyes and members of the board again, if I can. Before I introduce BWS Architects, I actually want to clarify one additional item that may address some concerns that we heard. When we initially ran into the issue with the project across the street with the structural issues with the floor, changed directions and realized that we need to start exploring some options, we actually did put out a document requesting proposals from multiple architects at that time. It is true, yeah, we do have a history of work with the BWS, and we appreciate the work that they do, but we did want to open that up. We did get three proposals back, and they were the lowest responsive bidder for that first phase. And from there, we entered into the conceptual design process and the feasibility study that was completed. So that was part of that process as well. And then with regards to utilizing local talent, that is important to us as well. We want to make sure that we are able to capture that to the extent possible. And for that reason, that's one reason, among other things, that we're looking at a partnership here between BWS and local architect Chris Thompson with Thompson Design Architects. That's mutually beneficial, really, for everybody involved with the project in a number of ways, and I can let Robin talk about that a little bit as well. And lastly, I just want to mention that when we get into a point where we're bringing a construction manager at risk, presumably, to you for approval, keep in mind too that the number of subs is something that we can kind of emphasize that we want to use local talent. So, they may have a number of people as the construction manager at risk involved, probably a relatively small number, but there'll be potentially hundreds of subcontractors involved in the project, and the majority of those will be undoubtedly from Yuma. So we expect to have a very high percentage of people involved in this project that are from the Yuma area. With that in mind, I would like to introduce Robin Schombeck from BWS Architects, and she can present her team and talk a little bit about the approach to the project from their perspective.
Thank you, David. I am Chairman Reyes, members of the board, and Susan, and members of the audience. We are delighted to be here. I am Robin Schombeck, Managing Principal and Project Manager for this project. We're located at 261 North Court in Tucson, Arizona. We also have an office in Phoenix. We do not take lightly this opportunity to continue working on this important project for the county. We know that one of the most important goals was to provide the most effective and efficient services for the citizens of Yuma County. And that's really one of our key points that we want to keep in mind throughout the project. These are dollars that are public dollars, and they need to be utilized wisely. And we want this to be a building that serves you for the long term, so far into the foreseeable future. It's an opportunity to make an impact in downtown Yuma, and we appreciate that opportunity as well. So we look forward to developing the form and aesthetic response in a way that represents the professional nature of the services that are provided by the county. So I just want to take a brief moment. We don't have a presentation. We are working from the work that we did with you and members of staff in the feasibility study. We're working forward with option 3, which is utilizing the property across the street, 3 levels above, 1 basement level, and working in collaboration with the city of Yuma as the authority having jurisdiction on the permitting process. So we're looking forward to moving that into, as Bill mentioned, the levels of detail and development that make a strong set of construction documents in a successful construction project. With me today, my partner and design principal, Frank Slingerland, project architect, Julie Stewart, and our longtime colleague and collaborator, Chris Thompson from Thompson Design Architects. Chris and our office have known each other a long time, from the time that Chris was a student and working in our office. He started his professional career in our office. I believe he got his registration while he was in our office, and we were delighted to launch him into his career here in his hometown. We have worked together with Chris on several projects for Yuma Unified School, the high school district, and we've also worked on several projects with Yuma in the Yuma Elementary School District. So we've had a relationship that we've maintained over the years, and we look forward to having him have a strong role in this project as we move forward. We also have other local consultants on our team for civil engineering, structural engineering, and geotechnical services. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, we're really, really honored to be a part of the project, and thank you for your confidence in us.
Well, I don't know. We still haven't voted, but it feels a little bit. Look, there's a I think a natural reluctance. I mean, this is a huge project, and I think that, and I do notice, I mean, we're public officials, and, it's not the same thing to approve a 200 and some odd $1,000 project concept to Arcadia. We're now moving into the millions of dollars of fees, and I think that relates to the cost of the overall project, but it's still something that we sort of reluctantly go into, and I think it's just noticeable. I have no doubts about your credentials. I know what you guys can do, and I know I've seen you do it, and I've seen you do it not just for us. I've seen you do it for other organizations, and I've asked questions about it. So I'm somewhat comfortable. I think it's just the typical, and I would call it a good, healthy reluctance from the board sometimes to just jump into this project. It's been a little bit overwhelming, to say the least, to go from a simple remodeling project into a full-blown 3-story, 80,000 square foot new building. It's been like pulling teeth. But I thank you for your presentation. Is there any questions? If not, guys, I know how tough it is, but this is a kind of project you got to keep moving forward unless you have a reason not to, or a question not to do it. So do you have any? If you don't have a reason, I'll entertain a motion to approve the item as presented.
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Right. See, that's the reluctant second there. You can hear in his voice, but we beat him up. That's why his nose looks like that, because he didn't agree with us earlier. But
had to bring that up.
Yeah, beat him up. But there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the item? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Aye. So is there anybody against it? Thank you. It was tough. But needed. So thank you very much, and I want to thank the team, because it takes a lot of work just to get to this point. And I know that it hasn't been easy. I know it's a tough project, a tough move. I want to thank the board for just having the strength, and just or maybe not even the strength. It's just kind of getting themselves to a point where they'll see this project moving forward, as big as it is. And I know Supervisors Line and Simmons and Borchas and Lynn Pancrase they don't take this lightly, and I appreciate that. So just if you have any questions, just get them to the right people. I'm sure they'll be ordered, and they'll be answered.
Ask Tony.
Or ask me. I'll tell you. No, thank you very much. Thank you for coming over and being here and answering the questions. We're going to move into, I was asked a question of whether I was going to send everybody to lunch and then come back. No, I don't intend to. So that puts you between us and lunch. So we're going to move into the planning and zoning agenda, which means the full legal descriptions of the property sites for all rezoning cases are available for public review at the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. This will be full presentation. So we have a regular public hearing where staff will make a full presentation on each of the following items, followed by separate discussion, a public hearing, and action by the Board of Supervisors. Maggie, you asked me, you were one of those that asked me, so here you are, public hearing, text amendment case number 2102, a proposed text amendment of Yuma County zoning ordinance, section 1209-12.05, rules of procedure to limit the number of hearings to determine compliance, which can be held for zoning violations to a maximum of 2, and set them on a date not to exceed 180 days from the first hearing to determine compliance. And we all, just from reading it, we all know it's something that some supervisors, all supervisors have been asking, some expediency on these violation cases. So, Maggie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do not have a PowerPoint presentation for this item. The proposed changes to the zoning ordinance are within your staff report. It's page 2 of the memorandum to the board. That is item E in bold font that will be added to the zoning ordinance. And again, it's to limit the number of compliance hearings for zoning violations, and also the time between the first hearing and the second compliance hearing. Again, it's to expedite the process, and this was an item that was discussed back in February with the Board of Supervisors, and the staff and the Planning Commission are recommending that the item be approved.
Right, so this is what you guys asked for. So, I'll open it to the public, because I got to open it up. It's a public hearing, but this is about trying to limit the time it takes for a complaint to be dealt with, it just takes too long. People who file a complaint get discouraged because they don't see any action, because people keep pulling delays and they keep pulling postponements and so forth. So we're trying to squeeze the project so that whatever the resolution to that issue, it's taken care of within a quote reasonable amount of time, giving everybody due process and giving everybody an opportunity to solve the problem before it becomes even worse. Are there any, I mean, the public, this is a public hearing, Gail, do you want to step up? Maggie, would you give her some space?
My name's Gail Castro, I'm here again. I'm very excited if things are going to move forward. I still have a lot of concerns because there's different, it seems to me that there's been so many loopholes because we've been looking at the same properties, turning in the same properties literally month after month, year after year. This last fire that we had where our families had to evacuate and are having nightmares at night and nothing's being addressed to them. And when things are raked up and fixed up, or raked up in piles, people come out and, the zoning inspector and looks and thinks it's progress. But then it goes on and it goes on. And then we have a fire from it and multiple fires from that. And it's such an unsafe thing. And so the hearing officers, it's been a few years since I've sat in on those, but at the time I did sit in on that, everybody was let off with just this little slap on the hand. Nobody had to ended up coming into compliance. The people from one of the trailer parks and the owners were in California, they brought their attorney, so everything was null and void. We never had anything done. And I'm starting in this activism again. I'll be here twice a month, but I have a lot of documentation on things like this. And what I want is when something is reported, that they look back on the history of that and see how many times that very same property is being violated. And also, we've called in when we saw that it's becoming a threat to our community. And so Rural Metro comes out and they say, oh, no, it's going to be okay that they go ahead and light that fire. And then my daughter watches across from the canal and they have another pile and another pile. And then all of a sudden our homes are at risk again. And if we were not home and we did completely evacuate, we would not have a home. And there are, is a new little couple, and the fire came right up and burned in their backyard. The kids, their little girl's trampoline. The dad was out there with the hose. The neighbor called him and said, I'm not home. Can you put a hose on my house? Because I have gasoline tanks right next door, which is a violation too. And so what I'm saying is this is something, I'm glad to see any move forward, but we are talking lives. We lost a house on 4th Street a few years ago, and there is, the city of Yuma went out and helped, and they said they carried out, and there were no deaths as far as people, but their pets were carried out dead. And it's just ludicrous that I have to stand here, and I guess we beg, and if we have to beg, we will. But this has got to stop. There has got to be some kind of fire service, something. And my part in it is I am an advocate, and we are going to get together in our community to learn how to report. And we have cleaned, I want to let you know, we have cleaned personally these places ourselves, and so has the county. They have helped these people to no avail, because then they keep dumping on their property and they keep doing it over and over. So we all want to go to lunch. So for today, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Gail. And I think you're making the points that basically drive this process, that shorten the process to get more involved in solving the problems instead of just putting them aside for a while. So it is part of that process. Obviously, as a governmental entity, we're always concerned that, we may just overstep. So we're being careful about how we move and making sure that people's rights are respected, because as I've always said, somebody's junk is somebody's jewels for some reason, so.
Yes, excuse me, but I believe in that too. But I believe in not just that one person's, but the whole community as a whole, because it looks like we are catering more to those who are doing the violation and allowing to
Look,
go
we
over
can't,
and over.
all right, Maggie, come up, yeah. Oh, no, you come up.
Would,
Maggie.
when you're, ma'am, when you're speaking, would you please stand up here so that we can see you and hear you in the
Yeah,
microphone?
it's okay, no, Gail, you don't have to get up and repeat what you said. Just next time you're gonna say something, step up to the podium, that's what you meant. All right, anybody else in the public wants to address this? I think we're moving in the right direction, it's just a matter of how fast we can move. So we have this text amendment, it's back to the board, I close the public hearing, it's back to the board for their decision. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes?
Before we get that, could I ask Maggie a couple of questions?
Oh, yeah, Maggie, get back up.
What standard do we go by to come to the point where we say it's cleaned up? As far as, because I know there's times when we've said they're in compliance, but I go by places and I still wouldn't want something like this near me, with the junk that's sitting out. What do we use as a standard to consider that they're in compliance?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Simmons, the violation has to be cleaned up. If there's junk, the junk has to be removed from the property. There's times when the junk is removed, the violation is abated by the property owner or whoever is responsible for the property, and it's not uncommon as soon as we walk away or the violation is closed that
They bring it all
there's more junk piled on or brought onto the property.
That was going to be my second question.
That would be, somebody else would have to report another violation or file another complaint for junk on the property.
That was my second question. What about a second offense? Because people do, they could more or less kind of.
But I think we have hearing officers that are supposed to take these things into account. In other words, if you are guilty of a second violation, the fees or the punishment should be more severe. And I think it gets to a certain point. It's changing habits that it's difficult.
Well, my question is, do they take it into account? Or they just look at it like, okay, they're back again, it's a new offense, we start all over again, and we're right back into the same.
Mr. Chairman, it's taken as a new offense, and it's up to the hearing officer to determine whether the fine that will be imposed will be the same as the previous offense, or they could impose a higher civil sanction. But it's the hearing officer's discretion.
Yeah, and I remember some of the fines were daily fines, and I remember how we ran into legal problems implementing some of those things. But they eventually, Supervisor Simmons, they eventually can end up in court because some of the punishment that's dished out sometimes, and those are not very common cases, but they do happen every once in a while. And I remember that the punishment was a daily fine and until you cleaned it up. And I suppose that you may think or you may wish that the hearing officer know that if there's a recurring situation, then it isn't really doing the job. If you just have them clean it up and then junk it up again in a month or 2 weeks, hopefully those priors can be put into the record.
I think we're going to see more and more though, because I'm seeing it a lot in my district. The community's taking more and more pride in their area and their surroundings, and it's going to continue to. The complaints are going to continue to go up because people, one, it hurts property values, but people don't want to live near junkyards. I
think it's going to be like the dumping in the desert thing. I mean, it's going to require people to be more involved in their own areas and be more forceful about it, like Gail is being right now with the colonias. And it's going to require people's participation because it's like law enforcement. They can't be everywhere and do everything. They need the assistance of the public. So in this particular case, I think that's the same kind of lesson that we get when we're trying to do the best we can within the confines of the state statutes, and we end up with a conflict between property rights and the right that people think they have to do anything because they live out in the county, and the fact that there's some rights that their neighbors have that have to be taken into account in terms of health and safety. But it's going to be a continuous situation, I think, for as long as we're here. Anyway, the ordinance is there, or the text amendment is there. Do I hear a motion to approve it?
Jonathan, I'll second.
All right, so there's a motion and a second to approve the text amendment, which is meant to, again, speed up the process of resolving issues. Any more discussion on the item? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. So Maggie, thank you. And we move right away into Development Services Planning and Zoning Division. There's a public hearing rezoning case number 2101 at Jan Vega, agent for Sunderman Investments. Requested rezoning of two parcels totaling 10-acre gross acres in size, rural acre 10 minimum, which is RA 10 to suburban site built 2-acre minimum, and assessors parcels number 783-360108 and 748-36-109 located in the vicinity of Sierra Sands Avenue and County 15th Street, Yuma, Arizona. This is an item that was continued from the May 3rd agenda, and the applicant has requested this case be withdrawn. So I don't see much that we can get into other than the fact that it's supposed to be a sort of an agreement of sorts to put it all together into a planning unit development and bring it back to the board as one particular case as opposed to individual cases. Is that correct, Mr. Vega? Can you come forward, please, and just state, because we don't have to go through the public hearings or all those things.
Morning, Mr. Steele. Morning, Mr. Chairman, supervisors. Yeah, Adrian Vega, 1560 South Fifth Avenue. Yes, this case was withdrawn, and we'll follow up with the new case that it'll be in front of you guys in the next meeting. It'll be
all right. I got to open it to the public.
Yeah,
hearing.
just do a quick one.
No, I'm saying I got to open it to the public, and so we're gonna let the public, because we expected a crowd, I guess, because we had seats outside. So in the Sierra Sands, people have been pretty vocal about it. Whomever hasn't gotten a call, I can give you their number. So they've been pretty vocal about it. So you know, I'm pleased that it's going that route. That you're having a chance to do that, and I just simply want to state that. Continue doing that. Patience is going to be a virtue in this case of everybody involved in it. So,
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it's been a long process. We're working with the neighbors, and we're just trying to come up with an agreement. So,
is there anybody here in the public or out there in the public that wants to address the board on this particular issue? If not, I'll turn it back to the board, and I guess not. I mean, it's been withdrawn, so I'm not sure whether it requires any action from us. Legal, because it was published to be taking place today. Do we actually have to make a motion to what?
You could either move to deny or move, I suppose, to accept the withdrawal of the application.
I would rather accept the withdrawal of the application.
I would make that motion that we would withdraw
I'll
accept
second
the
that.
withdrawal.
Yeah, accept the withdrawal.
So there's been a motion by Supervisor Lyons. Who seconded it?
I did.
Okay, Supervisor
Derek.
Pancrasi seconded. So there's been a motion, a second to accept the withdrawal. Any more discussion on the item? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And we move on to item number 3, which is public rezoning case number 2109, JP Mahon, agent for Kathleen and Brian Abbott, requested rezoning of parcel 7 of a parcel that's 7.020 square feet in size from rural area 20-acre minimum to planned development. Assessors parcel number 49-50-078 located at 10343 East North Martinez Lake Road. The applicant has requested this item be continued from 8/16. He's unable to. But that was, he's unable to attend today. Do we have any publishing issues? Normally, these are published meetings, and things are sort of let out to the public. And what do you recommend we do in this particular case?
You could move to. Postpone this to a specific date because today was the date it was going to go, and that specific date will just carry forward with the publication.
Okay, for those people who are here for this particular case, we are looking at continuing the item to a specific date. The date that we, at least right now, think we can continue it is the 16th of August. Is there any, we don't need a PowerPoint presentation on the item if we're going to continue it. So do I hear a motion to continue? We have a motion to continue the item to the 16th of August. Is there any discussion on this? If not?
Mr. Chairman, the item does have to be open to the public because it was advertised for today's public hearing.
So I'm opening this item to the public. Is there anybody in the public that wants to address the board on this particular item? If not, I'll close the public hearing, take it back to the board for their decision. Is there a motion to continue the item to a date certain, which is 8/16/21?
Glenn said.
So moved.
Lynn made a motion, Supervisor Pancrasi, seconded by Supervisor Simmons. Anybody, any discussion on this item? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. And then we move on to item number 4, which is public hearing, special use permit number 2104, Mark Owen, agent for Bruce Anderson, requesting a special use permit per section 601.03T of the Yuma County zoning ordinance to allow a solar power generating facility on a parcel 40 acres in size, zone rural area, 40-acre minimum, assessors parcel number 153-03-003, located at the northwest corner of the alignments of Avenue 73 and a half and North County 14th Street, Dayton, Arizona. We are going to have a PowerPoint presentation on this.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Juan Leal Rubio, Senior Planner with the Planning and Zoning Division. As you mentioned, this is a special use permit case number 2104. This is a request per section 601.03T of the Yuma County zoning ordinance to allow a solar power generating facility. This property is located in the Dayton East County planning area at the northeast corner of Avenue 73.5E and North County 14.5 Street in Dayton. This is aerial imagery that shows that provided by the applicant that shows the solar project site. It shows two alternate routes to the project site. The agent will be better to explain this map, but here you can see the uses surrounding the project subject property, and immediately to the east you see an existing facility that was approved by the board some years back. Apologize, my keyboard's not working. This is the vicinity map prepared by staff. It shows parcel 3, crosshatch in the center. In green, we see properties within 300 feet zone, rural area, 40-acre minimum. To the west, parcel 1. Currently under the jurisdiction of the state of Arizona, and everything around the property is vacant. This is a view looking south at the subject property. View looking north from the subject property. View looking south on Avenue 74E, which is one of the main access routes to the property. We received comments from Marine Corps Air Station, Yuma, from Arizona Game and Fish, and we also received the neighbor to the east, immediately to the east, in opposition of this proposal.
Mr. Chairman, what was the opposition?
The opposition, the letter's in the packet, but basically it talks about disrupting the ag industry. That the neighbor feels that a project of this magnitude is going to create some conflicts due to maybe dust, maybe during construction is going to create just incompatible uses. Mr. Chairman, on the screen you'll see the listed performance conditions, also part of your packet. Would you like me to read each one of these, or should I just present them on the screen?
I'll read them. It won't take long.
Okay. Staff is recommending approval of this. Commission is recommending approval of this special use permit with the following performance conditions. Number 1, all owners or their agents must provide an ARS 121134 waiver within 60 days of a board approval. Number 2, the applicant should provide a range disclosure statement within 60 days of board approval. Number 3, the applicant should provide proof of legal access within 120 days of board approval. Number 4, coordinate with the Arizona Game and Fish Department prior to construction activities in order to exchange information on current Sonora and pronghorn use in the project area. Number 5, schedule construction activities outside fawning season for Sonora and pronghorn February 1st to July 15th. And number 6, notify the United States U.S. Fish and Wild Service, the Arizona Ecological Services Offices, and the Arizona Game and Fish Department Sonora Pronghorn Program Lead if pronghorn are detected during construction activities. This all was based on recommendations by Arizona Game and Fish Department. And the following operational conditions. Number 1, the owner agent shall maintain and make copies available to Yuma County current copies of all permits and notices from any federal, state, or local regulatory authority. Number two, the owner agent shall employ a chief safety professional and provide a 24-hour emergency contact phone number. And number three, approval of the special use permit is based on the site plan provided by the applicant. Any change from the site plan will require approval by the plan director pursuant to the Yuma County zoning ordinance.
You done?
Number four,
More. Oh.
prior to construction, the owner agent shall apply for a grading permit with the Yuma County Department of Development Services to improve the legal access road referred to in item 3 of the performance conditions with a gravel roadway referred to as standard C. Number 5, prior to construction, the owner agent shall submit certification from a licensed engineer confirming the roadway referred to in item 4 was constructed according to the standard C gravel roadway. Number 6, the owner agent must install and maintain a security fence 6 feet in height along the perimeter of the area of the installation of the solar panel modules. Number 7, the applicant must install and maintain a sign warning of the high voltage associated with the solar farm at the entrance to the facility, and the sign must also provide the emergency contact information. Number 8, post-project construction dust palliatives shall be applied to the soil for dust control mitigation. And number 9, prior to construction, applicant must provide to the planning director evidence of a valid decommissioning bond. If not verifiable to the county's satisfaction, then the applicant or the special use permit holder shall maintain a bond in the amount of the full decommissioning cost at the end of the anticipated life of the project, net of salvage value as estimated by a professional engineer registered in the state of Arizona. Said bond shall be reviewed and approved as to form, substance, and amount by the county engineer. The engineer's estimate of decommissioning cost shall be renewed no less than every 5 years by a private engineer registered in the state of Arizona, and a copy of each renewed estimate shall be provided to the county engineer for review and approval. The decommissioning bond shall be adjusted in accordance with the renewed cost estimate within 30 days after approval by the board. By the county engineer. Number 10, prior to construction, a traffic impact study will be required, and the owner agent is to construct the improvements identified by the study. And number 11, the owner agent must abide by the procedures and requirements adopted by the Arizona Game and Fish Department regarding the finding of any sensitive, threatened, or endangered species found on the subject parcel. And the following map shows parcel 9 to the east, which is the owner in opposition to this proposal. Mr. Chairman, that concludes staff's presentation.
Let me just say that is a lot of requirements, and that I am utmost concerned about the restrictions placed on this. But this is a special use permit, so I can sort of deal with that. But I'm afraid it's still a lot, and I'm afraid that we're getting to a point now where we're asking for things that are ultimately out of the control of the applicant, especially when it comes to things like endangered species and moving through. I mean, this was an open piece of land. A solar panel, it would be fenced, wouldn't it?
Chairman, that is one of the requirements.
So why would you be concerned about the program? I mean, we're disturbing flat-horned toad lizards. That concerns me, because I think I've seen it now coming for a little while, that you start asking for agencies, requirements, and then you start including them in this, and pretty soon we're looking at conditional zonings when you start to put in restrictions like those. We were leery of putting restrictions on for people who couldn't get right of way access to their property, and we were telling them, well, if you can't get it from your neighbor, that's going to mean that you can't get your zoning approved. And we thought about it, and we said, okay, well, we're going to have to give you a way to get through this. This is a special use permit, and it's for a solar plant. So I suppose that in some ways, as long as they think it's okay with it, I guess we're going to have to do this. But if it was me, I would be saying, wait a minute. I mean, this is I'm not going to be able to I can't do anything during longhorn fawning season. I can't do, that's just way too much. No, it's too cumbersome. And I guess we're gonna turn this into a public hearing and let the applicant say something, and I'm sorry that I got off
No,
right away.
Mr. Chairman, to your point, it just seems like we're overreaching and we're growing government instead of making it more user-friendly for anybody to develop and come into Yuma County. Seems like we're sending the wrong signals.
I think we're guilty of believing that these regulatory agents were never going to answer when, when we dealt with the Marine Corps Air Station, which we think is really necessary because, I mean, they are an economic driver in the community and we certainly don't want to be encroaching. But this is, to me, taking it a little bit too far. And I don't know how much of a little bit too far, but I'll hear from the applicant what he believes if it's here. Is the applicant? Okay. I'm going to open up. Oh, is there something you want to say, Maggie, before we open up the public hearing?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just want to provide background as to the requirements of the Arizona Game and Fish. The 2020 comprehensive plan does require or does, as part of the policies, priorities, and actions, indicate that or encourage coordination with the Arizona Game and Fish Department. So
Let him
staff.
finish. I know where you're going.
Staff for every application that comes through our office and is reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Division sends out requests for comments to
A myriad of agencies, I know.
over 24 agencies for review and comment. Some of these requirements that were placed on this special use permit were required on a previous special use permit, or similar requirements that were placed on a previous special use permit for a solar facility in the same general area. So they're not new requirements.
All right, just stop right there.
Go first.
Okay, they're not new requirements, Maggie. And
No, Mr. Chairman, there was opposition to this request, and based on the amount of opposition, it appears that it triggers a supermajority vote
there's
for
more than
approval
30%.
by the Board of Supervisors. It's 20% by number and area.
Is that 20%?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's just clarify the point. It is not my intent to not ask for whatever that agency feels they should be asking for. It is my intent to tell you that I am one of those few Democrats, I guess, or who believe in less kind of government, and that believes that when we get into, I mean, we're going to ask the Sierra Club, and they're going to have their views, and we're going to ask the Game and Fish, and they're going to have their views. My concern is getting to a point where we make zoning applications subject to too many restrictions in a way that it can't be done. And especially when it comes to, that word to me makes me cringe, environmental issues such as, endangered species, because endangered species can be everywhere, anywhere. In Yuma County, once you're in the desert, you may step on an endangered species without knowing. So that's the only concern. This is a planned unit development. And if they want the unit, that permit, they may be willing to concede that. But my training for years has been not to condition rezoning too much. And I see that, and I mentioned this before, but I understand the need to consult. It is in the plan. And it's a good idea because they've been getting information that is pertinent to the project. But also, I'd like to remind the board that the final decision is made by us with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and a recommendation from staff. It is difficult to ask staff not to recommend something that they've been told to do. So I don't see this as a confrontational issue, or I don't see this as you guys. I see this as us being that line that sort of say, okay, well, this is just a little too much or not enough. And so don't worry about it. It's not intended to reflect on Mr. Rubio, you, or the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's that the final buck rests here, and it's starting to feel like there's too much regulation going on. But again,
overreach.
Well, it could be considered overreach. I just simply say that I am not asking at all. Don't want it to imply that I don't want you to ask everybody, because that's what is required. It's required for everybody. I'm just saying that the staff needs to be needs to consider some of these recommendations as recommendations that they are. And they may not necessarily fit into requirements. They may just be recommendations of things that they want to do. But when the staff brings them up as requirements from the Game and Fish, I tend to, well, not just from the Game and Fish. I want to make sure that we've had some issues with the Marine Corps Air Station that I had some problems with that we're working our way through. And we do have issues with some landowners, Sierra Vista being one of them, that I'm sure they're going to, bring in that I would consider to be a little over the top. But it is not intended to be like, okay, guys, what are you guys doing? You can't do that. No, you can't. And obviously you do.
And Mr. Chairman, these are recommended conditions. So the board, the planning commission and the board all
Can.
have the option to not require the conditions that are
I
recommended by
just feel bad
staff.
about you guys making recommendations and not following them. All right? Okay, right, got it.
When was the last time an antelope was spotted there?
I don't know, but it's probably not that relevant. It's relevant during the discussion of
Yeah,
whether
but
to
if you're
approve
gonna,
it.
if you're gonna restrict activity during a certain time,
And
what's
I'm
the
not-
condition?
the board can. I
Yeah.
mean, actually, you
I have a
can.
question.
It's just, okay, do you have a question, Supervisor?
Yes,
Lyons?
I
mean,
do.
Supervisor Penfield? Yeah.
How much noise is 85 decibels at 1 meter?
Oh, that's just that's a technical question that I don't think I have an answer. How
How
much?
loud is that?
80 decibels at 1 meter?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I did not hear the
I'm sorry, there's this big turbine that's gonna be on this facility.
There's no turbines, this is a solar panel.
It says the facility's turbine will produce noise of 85 decibels
There's
at
turbine?
1 meter, which is similar to that of a busy street.
Okay.
You're not gonna have a turbine on it?
No, there's a, you used.
Come forward.
You used adjectives like big giant. This is a research and development facility that's taking the heat.
Introduce yourself and then.
I'm Mark Owen. I represent the developer, Mr. Bruce Anderson, for the 24/7 project. Excuse me.
And before you go on, I want to open it to the public so that, we're taking care of the public hearing section of it, because we do have to have a public hearing.
Sure.
You are a representative of the owner, so you get to talk first. Go ahead.
So the history, the reason that particular area was selected was obviously there's several solar projects in that area. It's a wash, so it's a more difficult area to construct. It's about halfway between here and Phoenix. The property is adjacent to a road which has utilities available there. It also has new utilities and roads cut. Also, it was previously disturbed. All that land's been turned over, and they used to grow jojoba there. And then there's, you can see down here, there's high voltage power lines, 2 runs right adjacent to it. So the thinking was, this is a very good remote spot that's out in the middle of nowhere that's ideal for this type of project. This particular project, I know, falls under the category of PV or concentrated solar, but what it really is it's driving the solar rays up to a receiver, and that heat energy is then driving a gas turbine that doesn't use anything but that heat. So Siemens has a larger 2 megawatt version. This is a small unit that's 200 kilowatts. It's capable of driving both, but the plant itself sort of eats most of that power, just keeping itself, the lights and security and all those types of things on. And as far as the fish and game and the stuff we're going to try to comply with everything. That's one of the reasons we're remote, is that anything we can do out there. The developer of this project was, I think he had a hand in the original Earth Day. So he's a very green individual, and he made it very clear to us.
You may need to regret it.
I know, but in this particular case, we think that, it's a good mixture of both a disturbed area, the prior disturbance.
Yes, Supervisor Franklin.
May I have your name again? I'm sorry.
Mark Owen.
Mark.
Yeah.
Mark, is this an experimental project to see how it operates, or is it actually going to generate enough energy to supply something?
The second generations will. That's why I mentioned the larger turbines that would be connected. This one's running will generate about 400 kilowatts of electricity. So it'll put some onto the grid, but really it's proof of concept that the heat energy from this system can both be stored in dry ceramics rather than steam and the normal way that this is done. And then also that this turbine runs straight off of heat energy.
Dry ceramics versus like a salt or?
Yeah, in this case, we're using ceramics. Most of them stored in, just like you said, molten salt or other methodologies for storing the heat. This one is just straight ceramics, so it's a little more nimble and costs a lot less to run them.
Is there anything like that anywhere else in this county?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
That's new technology.
That's
Yeah.
brand new. That's why the next step's up If you can make power off of heat only, now you can look at flares, you can look at all kinds of things and start using heat, so.
All right. All right. Anyone in the public that wants to address the board? If not, we can, yeah, it's okay. We'll get back to staff before we do that. Thank you, Mark.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, now, you want to say something, Sharif?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just wanted to clarify that the level of opposition has to be both 20%, both by area and by number. In this case, it does not trigger because by number it's only 16%.
It's okay. We'll consider it like if it was.
Yeah, like it was.
All right. Do we have any comments from the board or any questions? I mean, like I said, I don't want it to sound anti-environment or anti-game and fish or anti-anything. I just want to make sure that we sort of level off, these requirements with the wanting of the property owner to do something, and that the ability that he can do that is not restricted so much that eventually, because of those restrictions, they can't do anything with their land. Mr. Owen seems to be in agreement that his client doesn't have a problem with protecting the bighorn or whatever and not doing anything on fawns. That's his choice. It would not be my choice, but that's his choice. And, when I asked him if he was okay with the restrictions, and he said yes, I think that answered that question. But I do want to let staff know that I don't particularly feel inclined to see that as a restriction, as a condition of the zoning. It could be a restriction to the zoning or something like that, but a condition of zoning makes it a conditional zoning for me. And I've been told by legal not to do that for a long time. I know we can put restrictions on it. I know we can put conditions on it, but we had all agreed most of the conditions that you place on it have been kind of normal conditions, obligation, easements, those kind of things, 1 year to bring the development plan. Those kind of things have been sort of customary. I'm starting to see more restrictions instead of, and I don't mean less restrictions. I just mean, I feel kind of a little bit concerned that we're getting into issues that will require a lot of.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to see us differentiate between, in the future, real requirements and recommendations.
I think the board, the Planning and Zoning Commission, does that before they send the recommendation. And I think it's not unusual for us to have recommendations from staff that the board, that the Planning and Zoning Commission does not like and says, no, we don't want that. So I don't see this as anything different than most of the time. It's just that I feel a little concerned that we're creeping into areas that are more difficult, like environmental areas, or I guess I can't define them, ecological areas and things like that. Where, as a former mayor of a city that was in the way, and as a county supervisor for a long time, I do remember the experiences we had with flathorn lizards and how much mitigation had to be done to be able to build the I-95. And I don't have fond memories of that. And I certainly wouldn't like to put I wouldn't like to put, well, not a cap.
Or draw a line.
Yeah. Well, I think you draw a line every time you do a zoning case. And I don't think there's such thing as a precedent. Precedents have changed over the years. So let's focus on this particular one, and then we'll focus on the other ones when they come. I just wanted to sort of give you a little bit of a heads up. And I know some of the planning and zoning members have complained, but that's not. I think at the end of the day, the decision's made here. Okay, and I just wanted to give you a little glimpse of where I stand, and I think you probably can feel where Supervisor Lyons stand. So we're going to deal with this case. I'm going to close the public hearing. I already did, I think, and then go back to the board and have a motion made. I think we're missing lunch by now. So is there a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion.
All right, okay. So there's been a motion by Supervisor Simmons and a second by Supervisor Lyons to go ahead and approve the, is it PD or is it a special use permit? Special use permit for case number 2104 with its restrictions that, with conditions that were applied to it as accepted by the property representative. Is there any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did you
Aye.
move it?
I think it was moved by Darren and seconded by Jonathan.
That's his district, he can do it.
Um,
I'll second.
Well, I know the area well. There hasn't been anything.
I want a
I've done that for a
tour.
while.
I'd like a tour when it's all over, okay? Because
Right,
this is
thank you.
going to be something exciting.
Not as exciting as the big tower in San Luis that's driven by water. All right, let's go on to the next item, which is discussion regarding legislative issues. And the only person wearing a mask throughout the morning, because he's got a little baby at home and he needs to protect everybody, is Alejandro Figueroa.
Oh.
Don't get it. Don't get it.
Hey, but you don't want mama to get it. That's,
That's okay. Hey, guys, if anybody has to leave, it's okay. We won't feel slighted.
Bye now.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, did you get a no vote on a call?
I'm surprised you didn't say anything.
uh-oh. Tony, John.
Sorry, what up?
John wants.
You didn't finish your vote.
Oh, sorry. Anybody in opposition? No? Okay, thank you, John. I'll
Yeah, you
keep
call
forgetting
it.
that. Yeah. Anybody in opposition? No? That's it. It's a
Motion
unanimous
approved.
decision. 5-0. Yes. Thank you. That's all right. Thank you, John, for bringing that up. I think I need lunch. Maggie did? You brought it up? That didn't go through the whole thing? I don't know. I just get the finish that, I mean, I get the
Your
finish. I get
fault.
the
You gave
feeling
him too
that,
much to talk
that once
about.
you get 5 votes in favor, there ain't gonna be any against it, but I guess I have to finish up the process. All right, so Alejandro, sorry to interrupt.
Good afternoon, Chamber members of the board. Alejandro Figueroa, Director of Economic Development and Intergovernmental Affairs. I have a very brief report on legislative items. So the Joint Legislative Budget Committee reported a record growth in fiscal year 2021 with total general fund revenue 28.8% above fiscal year 2020, which is the highest level of growth since fiscal year 1975, Growth in June collections exceeded the recently enacted budget forecast, increasing the state's preliminary fiscal year 2021 ending balance from the projected $442 million to $999 million. Some of the potential contributing factors that resulted in such significant growth include the federal pandemic aid, a shift in consumer behavior from purchasing services to durable goods, and substantial growth in the housing and stock markets. Growth in state revenues was seen across all major general fund revenues categories, with fiscal year 2021 collections for sales tax up 15.8%, individual income tax up 44.2%, corporate income tax up 65.5%, and insurance premium tax up 15.2% compared to fiscal year 2020. A brief update on the wildfire in the state. The recent monsoon rains have temporarily helped reduce the active wildfires burning in the state.
Good.
But the Arizona flood warning system indicates that there are several areas impacted by recent wildfires that are at increased risk of flooding. While there are still stage 2 restrictions in state lands in Apache, Coconino, Gila, La Paz, Maricopa, Mojave, Navajo, Pinal, Yavapai, and Yuma counties. So some of the stage 2 restrictions is we don't get to do any campfires or shot guns in a state park.
Why?
On the bipartisan infrastructure framework, I just wanted to let you know that U.S. Senate voted to take up and move forward with the $1 trillion investment package in infrastructure. The 67 to 32 procedural vote included 17 Republicans in support, including Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, signaling there is bipartisan support. The package would provide $550 billion in new federal money of roads, bridges, rail, water, transit, and other physical infrastructure programs. This includes $110 billion for roads, bridges, and major projects, $66 billion for railways, $39 billion for public transit, $65 billion in broadband investment, $17 billion for waterways or ports, and $46 billion for states and cities to prepare for droughts, wildfires, flooding, and other natural disasters. Although this was a significant hurdle to clear, there are still many other hurdles ahead. It is unclear at this point if the measure would have enough votes to pass through the House of Representatives, as some Democrats in the House continue to push for a larger package.
Yeah.
So Mexico is soon to celebrate its 200th anniversary, and they're inviting, the Mexican consulate here in town is inviting the board to participate by recording a 1-minute video congratulating Mexico and talking about the contributions that the Mexican community has done in our county. They're also, and you can feel free to reach out to me or to Kevin, and we can coordinate that for you. The Mexican consulate is also asking the board
In Spanish.
to consider proclaiming September 16 as Mexico's Independence Day in Yuma County. Finally, I just wanted to share with you that I will be representing Yuma County as the new vice chair of the Rural Committee at the Arizona Association for Economic Development.
That's great.
And I'm here if you have any questions.
How's the baby?
Growing, 1 month old today.
Yeah, can you sleep? Have you been sleeping at night?
Not a lot, but.
Well, welcome to the world of parenthood. No, Alejandro, I just wanted to say something. I thanked, first of all, Susan and the staff that were mostly responsible for hiring you. But, I've always knew you were a local talent, and I was always hoping that they would find a way to utilize it at some particular point in time. I can tell you right now, I'm not at all disappointed. I'm very pleased at the way you have developed your position into something that is meaningful. And I do want to thank Susan because, a lot of the times we forget, when she gets a bad hire, we get on her case. But when she gets a great hire, we should also tell her, you had a great hire.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And just as a last thing, because it does fall within your jurisdiction, we've had some prior conversations, especially with Supervisor Lyons, about the Arizona-Mexico Commission. It is something that I felt should be participating more in. And I think you're going to be key to our participation in there, and obviously taking the board members that want to go ahead and get involved and actually making sure that they're involved in some meaningful way, and not just showing up at the meeting of the, at the 1 yearly or 2 yearly meetings that we have, one in Mexico, one in this side, but more into the committees. I think that's the committee work is important. And I know Mr. Lyons, Supervisor Lyons, has been involved in it for a while, so he knows his way through it. So, your experience in international relations and his experience in being actually where the action happened, or the board, are going to be critical in Yuma County really becoming something. We do have a sort of an identity crisis with Yuma, and so we need to start separating that a little bit and making sure that Yuma County has its own identity and pursues the participation that it should in those particular organizations. So thank you very much for your prior work, and good luck with the baby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will then move on to the last portion, which would be the event calendar and current events. I know some of you have been to the National Association of Counties meeting. You may want to tell us how that went. Was it as busy as it looked, or was it not as well attended? What happened? Supervisor Brian Kersing, you go first.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I did attend the national conference, the NACO National Conference in Maryland, and I was very happy to come home to our heat compared to theirs. And but yes, it wasn't as it was both virtual and in attendance. Yes, and so it was a smaller conference, but I really enjoyed it, and I did get a lot of information that about broadband and about libraries, and just a lot of information that I found to be very useful. So,
okay, and I've been out of town, unless you want to report on something else.
And then, the chamber, I attended the Chamber Transportation Committee. I attended
GY.
Yeah, GY, there we go. GYEDC, Investors Luncheon, thank you very much. I attended the Arizona At Work Providers meetings, the YMPO Executive Board meeting, and then I attended Tim Hardy's Retirement Luncheon, which was a big success. And congratulations, Tim, on your retirement. And he's not going to retire. He's too busy, but he's just going to change jobs, I think. But anyway, and those are my events. So
Can't even see a white hair in his top of his head. How can he retire?
because he doesn't have any hair.
But
But they showed pictures of him with hair.
The GYDC luncheon calls with probably 20 different constituents, some still weighing in on the South County landfill.
South County landfill? Or
I'm sorry,
You're talking about the transfer
Gila,
site.
the
Oh, yeah.
transfer
The
site.
South
The
County
transfer
landfill.
Sorry.
sites, the charging
And
of the
talking
transfer
about
site.
South
yeah.
County landfill as well.
Well, the other side of the landfill is what
Complaints about
concerns me.
flies and sewage flowing
Oh,
into our community,
keep going. I want it.
et cetera.
I'd love to be able to have
Had
some
a couple
sort of.
different discussions with the Arizona-Mexico Commission, specifically as they relate to Yuma, immigration calls, and how some of the NGOs here in Yuma are working with local law enforcement and federal law enforcement to provide for people who can't provide for themselves coming across the border.
All right, Supervisor Simmons, how did you get those?
She had court meeting, also attended, met with the subject, reference to a solar project they're looking at out in East County. Another one. Different constituents. Yeah, got a sunburn. I was out after the storm in Tacna for about 4 or 5 hours that night, checking on people. I want to compliment Welton Mohawk Irrigation District. I think they had over 100 poles taken down by that one storm. And by midnight, they had probably 95% of the people back up with power.
Oh,
and that's
great.
just,
Yeah.
I think that's really something to be proud of. They've got a good bunch of people working for them. And I just wanted to compliment them on the job they did with that. And that's it.
Supervisor Porcher?
I attended the YMPO meeting. I also attended the GYDEC luncheon.
And you went to National?
And I went to Nashville. No, that was when
National,
I was
National.
No,
Oh,
National, the
National.
National
National.
Conference.
Nashville.
I think we reported that last meeting.
Oh, would you do
I
it
thought
again?
so
It's okay.
too.
But anyways, with that rain that we got on Friday, I just want to say, in Somerton at least, in that area, with the work that the county and the company that did with that drainage, connecting all the flood district, connecting all the drainages and sending it out to the big one. I mean, it works pretty good. You see the retention basins not fill up at all. Now on the other part where they're just working, you can still see that, but eventually it'll be the same. It really works.
Good.
I was out of town until Friday, which is when, and I got in too late to really be, part of that. And I found my car had a little bit of dust and some drops, so I guess nothing much happened in San Luis or gas in it. Everything happened in Somerton and this way. But my prior experiences with it have always been that the county is very responsive. They send teams, they respond quickly, especially to areas that need that, because we have to admit that in some areas, Yuma County is the only county government, and it's the only government they have. So again, kudos to the Public Works Department for their handling of everything that they needed to during the emergency. I did attend a virtual meeting, well, for me anyway, of the Yuma County Benefit Trust Board. I did have a meeting with some representatives in San Luis about their local issues, which is not necessarily unusual. I have a monthly meeting with them. And I was on vacation most of that time. So, and I'm not going to go into details about the vacation, but it was a good one. Susan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also was able to attend Tim Hardy's retirement luncheon and spoke briefly at that. He's going to be very missed. They are bringing back Jolene Hefner, who was a previous deputy director, to be the interim while they do a national search for a juvenile court director. We had our first quarterly management team meeting in person in over a year, so it was great to see everybody and all the directors in the county and the courts, as well as elected officials. So it was very good, and we had quite a bit of content, training, and information to share. I attended the ACMA conference and the board meetings, the chamber board meeting, GYDC lunch meeting, our broadband task force, and met with the U of A and the Sun Corridor Network on a National Science Foundation grant that they've received related to science-based, basically internet connections with heavy focus on research and how that can tie into the broadband project that we're working on. So exciting stuff to work on in the future.
And I know you got appointed to either be a panelist? Were you appointed to be a panelist on some sort of panel?
Oh, yes, I was on a panel session at the ACMA conference, as well as at the NACO conference.
Mhm.
And then I'm also on a panel at the ICMA conference that is in October.
Well, congratulations on the recognitions, because I know those are recognitions.
Women in business, yeah.
So thank you very much, everybody. It's 12:42, and this will be the end of the morning session.